across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello and a good afternoon to you. This is Drive. I'm Petrie, sitting in for Jeremy Kyle, who'll be back with you tomorrow. Coming up in the next 3 hours, we've got a lot to get through. So we're going to be talking a lot of politics. We're going to be talking about fungi. I'm not talking about Jeremy Kyle. I'm talking about the mushroom variety because of that case in Australia, which I have been absolutely fascinated by. And now all the legal bars are off. We can talk about the background to this as well, and her ex-husband believing that at least on 3 occasions that she tried to poison him to death as well. In fact, he stopped eating any food that she prepared. So there's a background to this. Now she's been sentenced. We can talk about that. So we're going to be talking about mushrooms, and some of you are going, I wonder if I can get some. It's not a good idea. Not a good idea. We probably can't get them in this country. We're going to be looking at sport as well, and lots of other bits and pieces. Emily Thornberry, talking about politics, she's throwing her hat into the ring to become the new Labour deputy leader, right? That's different to the deputy Prime Minister, but she wants to throw her hat into the ring. And she has said, look, we've only been in for a year. Give us a chance. Give us a chance. And I'm just wondering, if you're listening right now, if you are prepared to give Labour more time. Do you believe that they deserve more time? Do you believe that Keir Starmer deserves more time? Do you believe that they can be trusted with more time? She also said that we need to be listening to the public more. And I want to know if you think, can they be trusted to listen to us more? Do you believe that they will get their act together, or do you think that their time really is done? Look, Reform are banking on that. They're looking for an early election. It'd need to be pretty early, really. It'd need to be like now for Reform, to benefit Reform to the amount that they want it to. But do you trust Labour to give them more time? And while we're talking about Labour, Angela Rayner, I do want to know about this. Her severance pay is £17,000. That's what people get when they resign from these posts, because it's all because of the politics of the situation, because if you lose your position as an MP in a voting outcome, then it's considered not to be your fault and those things. So she gets this 17 grand, having already in the past campaigned for people who have broken the ministerial code, which she had done, that they should not get that severance pay. Do you think, well, she's paid enough? She's had to resign, she's gone, she's lost a 160 grand job, she's still an MP, so she's still got that money. But do you think that it's enough now and that we should just give her £17,000? Give me a call. I'd love to hear from you this afternoon. 0344 499 1000. Right, now getting back to the I mean, goodness me, this 6 weeks we had of barely any politics, and they dump it all in one place at one time. Damien Green joins me now, who is former Conservative First Secretary of State and the chairman of the Social Care Foundation. Damien, feast or famine it seems with the politics at the moment. Where do we start with this? Are we looking at, since the reshuffle, are we looking at a more divided Labour Party, or are we looking at one that can pull itself together?
Well, it could pull itself together, but yes, we're looking at a very divided party and a failing government. And I think even someone like me, I'm a Conservative, so you can imagine what I think of Labour governments. But as a citizen of this country, as a patriotic citizen, I want the government to be competent. And what's been shocking in the first year is that it hasn't been. And what I think, the reason why Keir Starmer wants this deputy leader election like a hole in the head is that the one thing it will certainly do is illustrate that the Labour Party itself is now very badly divided, and it looks like it will come down to a battle between a loyalist, a pro-Starmer, possibly a minister, and somebody who'd be inclined to put pot shots at him. And so he has the possibility of permanently having a deputy who's not particularly on his side.
But is that likely? Is he likely? I mean, I know the party votes this way, so it's not down to Starmer, but is it likely that they will choose somebody who will take pot shots at him? I mean, the public are already doing that. His own backbenchers are already doing that. He doesn't need a deputy leader that's going to do that.
No, he doesn't need it at all. But for what it's worth, I think it is quite likely that they'll do that, that because Labour members, who are the people who vote, are clearly unhappy. I mean, you would be. You had a government elected of your party with a big majority a year ago, and now it's down at 20% in the polls. You've just lost a deputy leader who was very popular with the Labour membership. I think if whoever emerges as, if you like, Keir Starmer's candidate, is going to struggle, because the members will want to say, no, we want our say now, and we want somebody there who's going to tell it like it is to the Prime Minister. Now, that will weaken Keir Starmer even more and leave the government permanently on edge. But if I had to predict, I would say whoever emerges as, if you like, the rebel candidate is likely to win.
When you hear the other reports as well saying that Keir Starmer must stop making mistakes, there's no real devil in that detail. What do you believe are the biggest mistakes that he's made according to his party?
I mean, that is the most ridiculous piece of advice anyone can give anyone. Please stop making mistakes. Yeah. I mean, yeah, really. Thanks
not
very
helpful.
Much for that. Yeah. No, absolutely not remotely helpful. Anyway, I mean, from his party's point of view, the fact that the first thing the government did was to try and take away the winter fuel allowance, which sort of set the tone, was catastrophic for the reputation of Rachel Reeves and the Treasury, who is central to, the Treasury is central to any government's attempts to get to grips with politics and improving the country. And then they followed up with trying, I think in a sensible way, I'd have gone further, but they tried to reform welfare and save some money on the welfare bill, and they found they were too weak to get it through their own parliamentary party. So they're in this terrible combination of doing things that their own most fervent supporters dislike and not having the strength to drive it through. So they look both out of touch from a Labour member's point of view and also ineffectual. And in politics, being ineffectual is almost the worst thing of all. People will sort of grumble and put up with you doing things that you want to do but they don't want you to do if they think you're effective. Keir Starmer's problem is that he's ineffective.
When you look at this party, though, this government, I mean, I've been around a few years now, Damien. I'm not prepared to say quite how many, but quite a few. And although I'm used to politicians punching themselves in the face, right, and causing their own problems, I don't think I've ever seen a feast like this. I mean, this party, this government, the self-harm that they've inflicted, I think is extraordinary. I mean, starting with the winter fuel allowance, which was nothing but a political move. I mean, it had to be, it was nothing to do with finances. That was just this is who we are and this is what we're going to do. All the way through to the homelessness minister having to resign because she took her flat off, booted out some tenants and then put the rent up. I mean, it seems to me, and Keir Starmer's glasses and clothes, all of it, the self-harm, I think is breathtaking.
Yeah, I agree, and I think what's genuinely, I mean, perhaps not like you, but certainly I've been around a very long time as well, involved in politics since the 1990s, and I cannot remember an incoming government that so quickly burnt its political capital. And I think what a lot of people forget is that maybe there wasn't that much political capital to burn, because although they won a huge majority in terms of seats in Parliament, they didn't win a huge vote at the general election. They were in the sort of 34, 35%.
Yeah, that's right, mid-30s. Yeah.
most governments get elected, if they've got a big majority, with well over 40% of the vote. So the country was, I'm afraid, very enthusiastic to get rid of my lot, but they weren't particularly enthusiastic about Keir Starmer. And he dissipated what enthusiasm there was much faster than any government I can remember. Or you can look back in history before either of our times. And governments like that normally have a year or two where people are prepared to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, I mean, looking at this reshuffle, which is interesting in its sort of lack of interest in a way. What do you think that tells us about Keir Starmer? I mean, look, he likes his boys around him, doesn't he? He likes his group of loyal Starmerites around him. But what else does this tell you? You know, biffing Yvette Cooper, I mean, clearly she was the lightning rod. He's blaming her without blaming her for the boat crisis and that not being solved. But what else does this tell you?
It tells me that he doesn't have an overarching vision. I mean, you're right that he likes his friends and loyal lieutenants around him, and you can't blame a prime minister for that. All prime ministers do that to a greater or lesser degree. But there's no sense in which, okay, we're now clearing away the deadwood who are holding me back from driving the government forward. And I think the reason why, apart maybe from Shabana Mahmood, the reshuffle will be forgotten quite quickly, is that unless you've got that driving force from the top, unless the Prime Minister says, look, you know what my direction of travel is, and I want everyone to get behind that, then any government will flounder. And so that's the problem, that if he wants to look at where the government's problems start, it's in his own office.
But they're not very good at communicating, are they? We've never heard. I don't know what this government stands for, really. I don't know what like you said, their vision is. I don't know what the journey. I don't know where we're going on this journey. Why are the comms so bad?
I think it's really interesting. People blame the comms. The comms are bad because there isn't a message. Yeah. You can appoint the Archangel Gabriel as your head of comms, but if you haven't got anything to say, then your message won't get across because there isn't a message. And that, I think, is increasingly over. I thought, okay, they're taking longer than I expected to get their feet under the desk and get the machine running. But it becomes increasingly apparent as the months go past, and particularly with this ridiculous announcement, this is phase 2 of the government. And you think, okay, tell us what you're going to do different then. And there was nothing. And of course, 3 days later, his deputy has to resign. So I assume we're on phase 3 now.
I don't even know what phase 1 was. I'm not entirely...
That's exactly the point. I just think, what is Keir Starmer about? Well, he's about trying to solve individual problems as they come up. Now, that's a perfectly worthy aim, but it's not enough for a prime minister, I'm afraid. We expect, and I can be bipartisan about this. Margaret Thatcher had a clear message. Tony Blair had a clear message. David Cameron had a clear message of how he was different from previous Conservative leaders. Leaders that arrive from opposition have got to have that clear vision and sense of direction. And all governments make mistakes and all governments get blown off course a bit. But if you've got a clear sense of direction, you've got a chance of succeeding. If you start without a clear sense of direction, you're toast.
With the public, I mean, I'm getting so many messages through already about the questions that I asked at the top of the programme. Are you prepared to give them more time? There's such a disconnect between a Labour government, and I think we all expected a certain type of government from a Labour government, and the people that they say that they're there to serve. Can they ever pull that back, do you think? Can that trust be fixed?
They can probably fix it with some, but not I think all or indeed many. But in part because I see no sign yet that they're going to get better. I do think this aspect of are they finished is an interesting one, because I hate to disappoint people who think there's going to be an early election.
No, there
the
won't
more
be.
trouble the government is, the further a government is behind in the polls, as long as it can get its business through the House of Commons, the more they will cling to power. The more this goes on, the more I think the next general election will actually be in the summer of 2029, which is the last possible date. Because governments who think they're going to lose tend to cling on to the last possible moment. And that is where Keir Starmer and his government are now. So, all Nigel Farage's talk about, there'll be an election in 2027. Yeah. Forget it.
I'm completely with you on that, having watched the various shenanigans that go on. Will Keir Starmer see it, though?
That's I think, a more interesting question, because if Labour is still at 20% in the polls after 2-3 years, then I think he will have to go.
Yeah.
And at that point, there will be the mother and father of a battle, and there are all sorts of people, some of them not in Parliament, like Andy Burnham now, who will have their eye on that. So I think that is sitting here today quite a likely possibility, but actually a general election is not a likely possibility.
No. Just before I let you go, Damien, it's oft been said that Labour have a women problem, and no more than under Keir Starmer, actually, because of his boys' club, or the boys' club, I think they're known as, that surround him. Lady Harman has said the deputy leader of the Labour Party has to be a woman. Do you agree with that?
Well, it doesn't have to be a woman. Pick the best person.
I agree.
It may well be only women run, because identity politics is sort of stuck at the heart of the Labour Party. But there have been women who have been perfectly good leaders of the Labour Party, Harriet Harman among them.
Yeah.
But there's just a long history of misogyny, frankly, in politics and the left in this country, and indeed in the United States, where interestingly and perhaps counterintuitively, women find it more difficult to get on in trade unions and in left-wing organisations than they have done in the Conservative Party, which is a sort of cold, pragmatic body which says, who's the best person for the job? OK, it could be her. It could be somebody who's from a minority. And, our last two leaders have come from different minority communities. The Conservative Party is quite open to appointing talent. Labour, frankly, less so.
Fascinating. Thank you. It's been a pleasure talking to you, Damien. Thank you very much indeed. Damien Green there, who is a former Conservative First Secretary of State and a chairman of the Social Care Foundation. So give me a call. Are you prepared to give this Labour government more time? They just need a little bit more time. 0344 499 1000.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, good afternoon. This is Talk, this is Drive Time, and it's Petrie sitting in for Jeremy Kyle for today. Loads of messages coming through, thank you. Dan from Kent said, unfortunately, we have no choice but to give Labour another chance. All we can do is hope that there's a country left to save in 4 years' time. Yeah, as Damien Green was just saying there is no chance of an early election. The only way that would happen is if they suddenly shot up in the polls and they thought, yeah, we'll do it now. But where they are now? No. Joining me now to discuss this and other political issues, Jack Elsom, political editor at The Sun. A good afternoon to you, Jack. Great to see you. It's interesting, isn't it, that to so many people, and it must be the same with the newspaper as well, is that the general public have lost faith. And I think that is we're really difficult to turn around, right?
Yeah, afternoon, Petrie. I think so. I mean, we see it all the time. And I think that's because Labour came on to government with such big promises and it went downhill so quickly. You obviously had those sorts of contained scandals in their first 100 days, whether it was around freebies or winter fuel or Sue Gray and the rest of it. But I think it comes down to stuff more fundamental than that, which is that Labour really came in because they said they would grow the economy, they would stop small boats, and they would restore stability to government. And over a year on, what we've had is hardly any growth, record channel crossings, and dysfunction at the heart of number 10. And so I think that's why people are getting fed up. Listen, we still have about 4 years to the next general election. There is still time for Keir Starmer to turn things around, but he has to act pretty quickly and radically. And I think that was probably the message he was trying to send to the country through this reshuffle, installing two of his toughest and most closest allies into key roles, Shabana Mahmood in the Home Office, Pat McFadden in the Welfare Department. But, the proof will really now be in the pudding about whether or not this stacks up. We keep on hearing that delivery is the watchword in government, but, we're a year into this government now. They had quite a while to prepare for their time in government, 14 years in opposition, 4 years with Keir Starmer at the helm, and they seem to come in without a real plan of how to turn this country around.
Or indeed a message. I was saying to Damien Green a moment ago that I've never known a government to be so poor at communicating who they are and where they're taking us. And I don't know about you, but I hate not knowing where I'm going. And I think that's what the country feels like, is we don't, what is your vision? What are you trying to say to us? And they're just not telling us anything.
I think that's totally right. And if you look at prime ministers of the past, they've always had that sort of roadmap about where they want to go. Tony Blair, whatever you think of him, was about fixing public services. Yeah. David Cameron was about getting the deficit down and getting the economy back on track. Boris was all about getting Brexit over the line. And you think about what Keir Starmer's overriding messages to the public, and nobody really seems to know. And it's just sort of that sense of drift, which is, I think, quite prevalent in government at the moment. And that is what is quite damaging because, lots of people say that the best politicians are the best storytellers, and they are the ones that really sort of take the public with them. You have policies here and there, but that feeds into an overarching narrative of a public who know what their politicians stand for and the direction they want to take the country. And you're right, a lot of people at the moment just feel that they don't really know what they're getting with Keir Starmer. He seems to blow in the wind, depending on public mood. He doesn't really act with much conviction. That is the feeling which a lot of people have. You look at these polls and sort of surveys and focus groups, which various companies do, and most of the time they do these big scattergrams. What do you think Keir Starmer stands for? The main word is nothing. Yeah. And that's quite damaging for a government which only came in a year ago. And it did seem, I think a lot of people in government are now finding that when you're in opposition, it's very easy just to chuck rocks and to put the boot in and to bash the government. And that's how really Keir Starmer rode to success, because the Tories were obviously doing incredibly badly and he was very effective at exploiting that. But when you're in government and the spotlight's on you, people expect so much more, and government is just so much harder. And so I think that they're really finding a year in that there is this sense of drift, and hopefully finally Keir Starmer can start to turn things around. But that remains to be seen, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, that last election really proved the adage that we vote governments out. not necessarily vote them in. We were just keen to get rid of the shambles that was the Tories at the time. And therefore, what do you do when in a two-party system, which, let's face it, it has been for such a long time? That's the only choice that you've got. And do you believe that Keir Starmer thought he was more popular than he was because of that win?
I think so, and he did actually start with fairly okay approval ratings, but obviously they have tanked. His own personal popularity ratings have tanked very quickly. I think the only comfort which he will take at the moment is that while Reform are doing incredibly well in the polls, they're about 30%, about 10-point lead over Labour on the most recent ones. If you actually look at who the public would prefer in terms of the Prime Minister out of Nigel Farage and Keir Starmer, in most polls he is still leading that quite peculiarly. And if they can frame the next election as a straight shootout, which is, do you want Nigel Farage to be Prime Minister or not, then maybe he has a chance in that, because there are, I think, a lot of people out there that won't vote for Nigel Farage just because of maybe historic reasons, the UKIP Brexit Party, whatever. Yeah, exactly. And while he obviously is wildly popular among his base, and he still does have, a massive poll lead in terms of the polls and Reform, maybe that might be something which Keir Starmer could exploit. Although, he tried that at the last local elections, and obviously Reform swept up incredibly well. So it's a very difficult strategy for him at the moment.
Let's have a look at quickly at the two big reshuffles. The rest of them, I think, anything else is just fluff around the edges, frankly. But Pat McFadden going into welfare, does this tell you that Keir Starmer is going to try and resurrect cuts to welfare?
Yes, they're almost certainly likely to have a second stab at those welfare cuts. They can't really afford not to. No. At the moment, welfare spending on sickness benefits alone is projected to rise to about £100 billion a year by 2030.
Wow.
Now, that is a massive drag anchor on growth. It is pushing up the debt which we pay as a country. We spend an eye-watering amount just to pay off the interest on our debts at the moment. And so, the cuts they were trying to put through earlier this year was about £5 billion in welfare savings. So it wouldn't actually cut the amount of welfare we are currently spending on. It would just cut it at a slower rate. It would mean it's going up just by a bit less every year. And obviously they gutted that bill amid a backbench rebellion. Keir Starmer looked incredibly weak at the end of that. So I think after bottling that, they really know they have to make another stab at it. I think Liz Kendall was seen in government as botching that. She was a bit hapless in the way they handled it. They were totally ambushed, the Whip's office, by that government rebellion. So they put Pat McFadden in there, who knows the parliamentary party inside out. He's a fixer. He can probably do it in a more delicate way rather than sort of the cack-handed way in which they tried to force them through last time. And so, yes, I think his appointment, is a statement of intent from Keir Starmer that they will intend to have that second go at welfare reform.
And McFadden, of course, like you said, will have more control, whether it be soft power or harder power on the backbenchers as well, won't he? He's seen as a much more senior figure.
Yes, definitely. And he's also right in the heart of number 10. He's one of Keir Starmer's closest allies. He's very close to Keir Starmer's chief of staff, Morgan McSweeney. And he also does command that respect on the backbenches as well, which I'm not sure that Liz Kendall really did. And so, I think definitely Pat McFadden going into that welfare brief will add some sort of heft and firepower to Keir Starmer's operation when it comes to getting those benefit cuts through.
And again, briefly on Shabana Mahmood going into the Home Office, is that Keir Starmer wanting to blame Yvette Cooper for him failing?
I think it's a pretty stark admission that after a year in power, they have made no progress whatsoever, really, in stopping these boats. And, it's actually got worse. Keir Starmer came in saying he had a ready-made plan to smash the gangs. And I think that even if boats had stayed at the same level which they were before, then maybe they could have gotten away with it, and saying it's taking time to bed in. But the fact it's 50% up in a year under Labour's watch, I think, is pretty damning. And so the fact that not only has Yvette Cooper left the Home Office, but a raft of junior ministers have also been cleared out, goes to show, I think, that they are really accepting of the fact now that something wasn't working in there. Shabana Mahmood is seen as a bit more radical. I know lots of your viewers will remember her having to inherit a pretty awful prisoners crisis in which she had to green light the early release of prisoners. It was a pretty unpalatable thing for her to do. But speaking to those around her, I noticed how uncomfortable that was, because Shabana Mahmood, I think, actually is a bit of a radical reformer, and I think actually is a bit tougher than Yvette Cooper. And you get the sense with governments, and I think this was the problem where the Tories went wrong, is that they tried to approach the small boat crisis with incremental, pretty minute policies, and they found that none of that was working. And so as they went through the lifetime of the Tory government, they got more radical, until eventually they ran out of time. I think that Keir Starmer and people around him are recognizing that time is something they actually don't have, and they can't just wait to the end and suddenly go, oh, damn it, actually, we need to get more radical, because then you run out of time. And so I think that what we're going to see, hopefully, is more radical policies to actually finally put a stop to this. But, what you really need, I think, in this is some sort of deterrent. And that is what I think Labour is still lacking at the moment. They can talk about ramping up deportations. They can talk about putting more money into fighting people smuggling gangs. But at the end of the day, and hopefully this is something Shabana Mahmood will start doing, the only way you can really stop the boats in the long term is by breaking the incentive people to come here. So it means that, one, you stop the illegal working and the sort of the black market bonanza, essentially, which people can work in when they come across the channel, but also knowing that if you do come here and it's very difficult to deport you back to your own country, maybe there's another option, maybe there's a third country you can go to. So these are the sorts of things which Shabana Mahmood will be looking at.
We'll wait and see what she delivers. Jack, thank you very much indeed. Pleasure talking to you. Jack Elsom there, political editor at The Sun.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a good afternoon to you. It's Petrie Hosken here with you, and up until 7 o'clock this evening, sitting in for Jeremy Kyle, and we're talking about this reshuffle, right? That you're probably going, oh, a reshuffle, how boring, and it probably is. But there are some interesting moves there. The Pat McFadden and the Shabana Mahmood they are interesting moves. Yvette Cooper, of course, will be blamed for the lack of action on the boats, even though her hands were tied politically, really, by Sir Keir Starmer. But it's interesting to me that Emily Thornberry, who is preparing to enter the Labour deputy leadership race, that's not deputy prime minister, that's deputy leader. She's a senior Labour MP who, of course, was snubbed by Sir Keir. So, she had a relatively high position in the shadow cabinet, and as soon as they got into power, she was elbowed out. So Thornberry's got an axe to grind and something to prove. So she's going to throw her hat into the ring, it seems, for that job. But what is interesting is her tone and her suggestion that we should be giving Labour a bit more time. And that, you know, we've only been in for a year, and we need a bit more time, and we need to be better at listening to the public. So I'm asking you, really, if you agree with that. And I mean, maybe you're the sort of person who thinks, you know, come on, they've had a rough old ride of it. I can't help but think it's their own fault that they've had a rough old ride of it. But yeah, we've got no choice. They're going to be in. There's no early election. Forget that. So we've got to back them. We've got to back them. We've got to hope that they get it right. So with Mahmood in as Home Secretary now, do you trust her? Do you think that she'll be better than Yvette Cooper? Pat McFadden being put in charge of benefit. He is definitely going to come back with some cuts to the welfare bill. There is no question. Pat McFadden has been put into that position for a reason, and that reason is that he is respected in the party, he has a lot of soft power in the party, he will be able to silence the backbenchers that got Keir Starmer to U-turn on those cuts before. There is no doubt that there will be cuts coming to welfare. You mark my words, wait and see what happens. That's what Pat McFadden has been put in for. Whether Mahmood will be able to actually do anything about the boats, it was interesting what Jack Elson, the political editor at The Sun, was just saying, in that they've got to get more radical. They can't just wait. There has to be a deterrent in place. They have to, if you like, I don't really like the term, but man up and come up with a deterrent. They've got to be tougher on this. Just saying you're going to smash the gangs, we know, is like whack-a-mole. That is not going to happen. You kill off one gang, another one pops up. It's never going to make any difference whatsoever. So I'd love to hear from you. Do you think they just need a bit more time? Or are you worried that with more time, things will just get worse? 0344 499 1000 is the number you need to give me a call. And you can text, as loads of you have, actually. I'm going to read some of them in just a moment. I put the word talk and then your message to 87222. Clayton in Dartford thinks this whole policy with the boats is deliberate. We know what Sir Keir is doing, letting in as many illegals as possible whilst pretending to the British public he is doing his best to stop them. That's Clayton. Hi Petrie, you're out in daylight. I know. Scary, isn't it? Those of you who don't know, I do a late night show normally 10 until 1. All Starmer has done is tighten his grip. He thinks with whom he's surrounded himself with. All these members of the Fabian Society only have one goal and nothing will improve. He will just get better at hiding things. France may be a game changer and make things even worse, and that's Joanna from Salisbury. And what she means by France is that there's a vote of no confidence again on the Prime Minister in France, which I think that vote will come down at about 6 o'clock this evening our time. So we'll find out, but the likelihood of him remaining in place is pretty low. I think we're expecting him to go again. I think he'll be the third under Macron to have gone. France in major financial trouble, looking now at turning to the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, for a loan, for a prop-up. They are in a disastrous situation. And of course in France, if they even think about cutting pensions or adding, I think, was it the last time they wanted to add a month or 2 months to the pension age? No, French weren't having it. They were out on strike. They were out on the streets. So it's very, very difficult for France to cut anything. And they spend more than pretty much any other country on their country. It's a pretty socialist country. So yeah, actually, let me read another message. Hi, Petrie, I'm afraid Damien Green was part of the problem with the demise of the Tories as a one nation wet better suited to the Lib Dems. To hear him describing himself as a Conservative is galling, to say the least. That's from Nicola from Norfolk. He isn't anymore, is he? Ex. Can you be an ex-Conservative? Like being an ex-Catholic, really, isn't it? I don't know if you can. Sam says, more time for the ultra-left-wing government. Absolutely no chance. They've hoisted their flag high and we can all see their true colours. It's time to bring them down before it's too late. And that's from Steph. Let's listen to a voice note now from Barry on Labour wanting us to give them a little bit more time.
Labour now want a chance. Well, they're going to get the same chance of me that they gave to Lucy Conley and Peter Lynch. Nothing. They called us far right when all we were doing was standing up for the people. They can go to hell as far as I'm concerned. Barry Norwich.
Strong words. I think a lot of the country feel the same. Give me a call. Let me know. Are you prepared to give this Labour government more time? 0344 499 1000.
It's interesting that immigration has fallen a lot in the past couple of years. We had the so-called Boris wave, and it's now dropped off quite a lot. But the kind of as a topic in the media,
well, wasn't it about a year ago? It was sort of the last calendar year, wasn't it? Still in the sort of ballpark of 800,000.
I think my understanding is it's about halved from the levels that it previously was. And I think it's certainly fair to say that, you know, depending on, you know, people will have different views on what the right level is.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello and a good afternoon to you. This is Talk and it's Petrie Hosken here with you instead of Jeremy Kyle, who'll be back with you tomorrow. So I'm here with you until 7 o'clock. And I have to say that this story, this is a movie in the making. I'm absolutely certain it's already on its way. It has been a tale and a half of an Australian mother who decided to kill her relatives with poisonous mushrooms. Now, she made a beef Wellington, which a credit to her. I mean, that's not easy to do, a beef Wellington. They are quite hard to make. So she made a beef Wellington. She asked them to come over, and she'd said to her family, I mean, she really thought this through. The excuse as to why her children weren't there is that she'd lied about a cancer diagnosis. So she'd said to her family, to her husband's family actually, look, I want to have a chat with you. I've had a cancer diagnosis, and I want your help in how I'm going to tell the kids, so the kids won't be there. Right, so they came over. She served this beef Wellington, 3 servings on big grey plates and 1 serving on a smaller. I was told it was orange, but it wasn't. It was like a beige plate. The beige plate was hers, and for some reason the other 3 got these poisonous mushrooms, and she didn't. And she said it was all an accident. In fact, she still says that she's innocent to this day. She got 33 years in prison, and she killed 3. And nearly killed a 4th. And then we learn that she had also attempted on several occasions to knock off her husband with poisonous food as well, even to the point where she sent him, when they broke up, she sent him cookies that she said her daughter had made for him. Your daughter made you these cookies. And she sent them to him, and they were poisoned as well. He spent a lot of time in hospital. He was severely ill with whatever she had done. That wasn't allowed to come out until after the sentencing, which is unusual because normally it's after conviction. You're allowed to do these things, but there was a bit of a block on that. But so she had form. She also lied about having a dehumidifier? Something. Anyway, something that takes the liquid out of things, and she dumped it in the dump and in the bin, and I mean, it was all such a terrible lie. But the heart of this story is these death cap mushrooms, which do grow in the wild in certain parts of Australia. They're filled. They've got 3 toxins, 3 main groups of toxins: amatoxins, phallotoxins, and virotoxins, and they work immediately. This poison works immediately on the human body. It starts to break down cells, and it attacks the liver and the kidneys. So the person who nearly died had to have a liver transplant. So at the heart, like I said, are these death cap mushrooms. So we decided to talk to a forager who knows about these things, Monica Wild, forager and head of the Wild Biome Project. Monica, I had hoped that you were a man so I could call you a fun guy, but I'm going to have to call you a fun gal. It doesn't quite work, but we'll stick with that. I know it's an old one. Mo, talk to me about these mushrooms. What do they look like? How what would she have done with them?
Well, the death cap you also find here in the UK, and they've got a sort of slightly brownish olivey green top to them. They have a sort of neck around their, a ring around their neck, but very distinctively they have a swollen base. Oh. So even if you're a complete novice, just coming into mushrooms for the first time, which she wasn't, they have this very special distinguishing feature for that family.
Ah. And why, what makes them so toxic? I mean, I suppose for them in nature it's a self-defense mechanism from being eaten, I guess. But they are extremely, are they the most dangerous of mushrooms?
Well, there's quite a few. Normally the name gives you a clue. There's also the destroying angel and funeral bells. So yeah, they are one of the most toxic. And what happens initially is that you get gastrointestinal symptoms, so stomach upsets, and then very often those symptoms seem to clear a bit. And this is because when the toxins are circulated, they go around the body. But when they come back to the liver 24 hours later, by which time you might have thought you'd got off with it, then they wreak absolute havoc to your organs.
What do they do?
They basically break down the liver and then the kidneys with the poisons that they contain. So you'll suffer from, you suffer from liver failure unless you can get a liver transplant.
And am I right in thinking that that so many people a year accidentally eat these things as
Not
well?
many.
Not many.
No,
I
not many.
wouldn't trust myself foraging. Absolutely not. I just wouldn't trust it. I'd definitely pick one.
That's the right instinct, but normally people don't go for anything complicated to start with. When people start to learn, they learn on very simple things like chanterelles, for example, or porcini. And only as they've become quite expert do they dare to tackle this family, because there are some edible ones in that family. And she obviously wasn't a novice.
And when you dry them, do they become more, I would imagine they'd become more toxic, would they, if you remove moisture from them?
Yes, because on average about you need about 10 kilos of fresh mushrooms to make a kilo of dried, so everything's getting concentrated by that same amount. But nobody would actually go out and deliberately dehydrate Amanita phalloides, the death cap mushroom, unless they meant to do someone harm.
So there's no medicinal, value to them. There's no, you couldn't say I did that because they're really good for gout or something.
No,
I just made that up. No, not at all. So when she started saying, Erin Patterson, that this was a mistake, what was? I mean, you must have been all over this story with your speciality. Did you think, no, that's not possible, or did you think possibly?
No. I mean, right from the beginning, although I wasn't able to comment on it while it was, while the court case was still ongoing, but right from the beginning, I certainly didn't think that her story held any water at all. I thought it was deliberate. And particularly the bit about owning a dehydrator and dehydrating mushrooms. People don't get into dehydrating mushrooms unless they know what they're doing. And then, of course, she tried to, dispose of it and lie about it. I mean, it was, there was so much evidence even outside of the courtroom that suggested that she wasn't telling the truth.
And with them, like I said, I don't know why I would have just made a really easy mushroom soup. I mean, to go to the trouble to make a beef Wellington, which is quite complicated. What chance did they have any chance at all? I mean, so you use the mushrooms around the outside of the beef. You pancake first, then the mushrooms, and then the pastry. Would they have stood at any chance if they'd eaten a decent portion of that? I mean, one did survive.
Yeah, he was actually extremely lucky to have survived, because they didn't know. You see, the people that are saved are people who've gone out, foraged themselves, made a mistake, eaten it, then got symptoms, and then taken immediate action. But of course, they didn't know that they'd eaten poisonous mushrooms. So they were probably later getting treatment, although I think that the husband's GP had suspected him of being poisoned before. And when he heard about it, I think it was his intervention that encouraged them to go to hospital pretty quickly.
And at least two of the people that died were relatively elderly as well. Would that have sped up their demise? Because they seem to actually be dead very quickly.
I think out of the four of them, they were all reasonably elderly, but it would depend. I mean, if you already had a weakness in your liver, or if you'd had kidney problems, you would certainly have died quicker. So if you are new to foraging and you're the only thing I would forage is wild garlic, because I know what that looks like and it tastes delicious as well. But you think you've eaten the wrong thing, you should definitely just take a sample with you, perhaps, and go to hospital. Yes, take a sample with you and go to the hospital, and tell them what you think you've eaten. I mean, the thing is that in actual fact, compared to the amount of people who forage, and I don't just mean people who forage for blackberries, there are actually surprisingly few incidences. But even with something like wild garlic, you have to be really careful about what you're doing. Once you've safely identified it, keep that hand-to-eye coordination, because in actual fact, there are far more reports of people having accidentally served up daffodils, which are, you know, daffodil leaves, which are very toxic and grow in amongst the wild garlic patches, because they're not really looking at everything they pick, rather than people dying of toxic mushrooms.
That's fascinating. I definitely will be careful. And the other thing is, wasn't it? It was rhubarb leaves are incredibly toxic. And during the Second World War, when everybody was meant to eat everything, people were dying from the rhubarb leaves. So don't eat rhubarb leaves either. I know that much. It's fascinating to talk to you, Mo. Thank you. I really enjoyed that. Mo Wild there, forager and head of the Wild Biome Project. Yeah, don't eat rhubarb leaves. Really, really toxic, apparently. Right, so there's still so much more to come on this drive time, so please don't go anywhere. Stay where you are, and also pick up the phone.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, good afternoon. This is Drive on Talk, and it's Petrie Hosken here with you. I'm normally doing a late night show, so if you want to join me in the future, I'm 10 till 1. Might as well get a little plug in. No harm in it. By the way, how did the alarm thing go for you yesterday? You know, that 3 o'clock alarm that was meant to be the warning to us all of terrible things happening. I happened to be with a friend. She came around for a glass of wine, so we were just sat chatting, and I think it was about 2 minutes past 3, her alarm went off. Mine didn't. And then about 2 minutes later, my alarm went off, only for about 3 seconds, and it was a bit wet, I thought. And then I went, oh, well, that's my alarm then. I wouldn't have had time to get in, to save myself, but you would have done. And then mine went off again, about 2 minutes later. And I thought, these are the people who want us to trust them with our digital ID. Not a chance. You can't even get that right. It's embarrassing. £25 million a year that cost. It just reminds me of the COVID app, 35 billion. Yeah, that worked, didn't it? Right, let's get back to some politics of the day. And Sebastian Salek joins me now, Labour councillor and commentator. Did your alarm go off yesterday at 3 o'clock promptly?
It did. Do you know what? I was in the pub with 6 or 7 others, waiting for some food to arrive. We thought it was the buzzer that was declaring the arrival of the roast. We were very disappointed when it was only a little text.
Yeah, because that would be cool, right? But yeah, no, mine didn't go. Mine was late, and then I had 2. I don't quite know what that means. But
good thing it was a test, huh?
Good thing it was a test. Now, let's talk about what's going on with Labour at the moment. What do you make of this reshuffle, and what does that tell you about what Keir Starmer is planning next?
I think it's about getting key people into key positions. Really pleased to see Shabana Mahmood moving into the Home Office. I think we need a reset on Home Affairs, clearly, from what we've seen with the migrants coming over. I think everybody within Labour would agree with that. Get a grip were the words that the Prime Minister reportedly gave to the new Home Office team. And I'm pleased to see Shabana Mahmood being very quick on this, coming out with some really tough language. And I think that is genuine, by the way. I really do think she means this. She was the first one to raise the conversation about Article 8 of ECHR within the party as well, openly. So she's been leading on this for a little while, in a sense, and excited to see what she does, because this is one of those issues that Labour really will be measured by at the next election.
Does that mean that Yvette Cooper was the wrong choice, that she was just the wrong Home Secretary?
I don't think so. And do you know what? I think we're being a little bit unfair to her.
Kind of does, doesn't it? If she's been booted out and this new Home Secretary is the one that's going to fix it.
Well, there are 2 things to say, and I think Yvette has a proud legacy. I know you might laugh at that first of all, but let me talk you through what I mean. The asylum backlog has come down, the cost of hotel spending has come down, the number of enforced returns has gone up. So there is a lot to be proud of. The difficult bit are all the visible bits, really. It's the number of people in hotels, it's the number of people coming over, and that's why Shabana Mahmood has been so vocal about those aspects, bringing forward the deadline from 2029 to much sooner in order to get rid of the hotels, and also reducing the number of small boat crossings to tackle that part of it. So it's continuing a job that's already been done, I think.
But hasn't the backlog come down because Labour has just simply fast-tracked people through the asylum process, where most of them have been getting the yes that they wanted, in order to get that list down?
No, so the number of people who've granted protection has fallen by about a quarter compared to the year before, and the number of cases is down by something like 18%, because they hired a load of people this time last year, as soon as they came into government, to start processing the claims. The problem with the Tories is they just weren't doing the work, and that's what needed to be done, and that's the reason the backlog's come down, which I think is something to be really proud of.
But also because the numbers of people coming from countries that have absolutely no right to be here have gone up. So, again, that makes it easier. And so does you're saying the returns have gone up. But again, it seems that this government have gone for the really easy returns first to countries that have no right to be here, people who have no, from places like Albania or Turkey or places like that, that they're the easy ones to return. They've not touched the difficult returns.
So to be really clear, everybody has a right to claim asylum here. But when I'm talking about returns going up, I'm specifically talking about enforced returns. So the easy ones are voluntary. Those are people saying, yeah, stick me on the plane, let's go. The enforced returns are the people who are more resistant. They might have had their asylum claim denied, and then they have to be sent elsewhere because they then don't have a right to be here. That number has gone up by a quarter over the last year. So I think that's something that we can be really pleased with.
But what is Ms Mahmood going to do that's any different? We've all heard the talk. We've heard it until we're blue in the face, but nothing seems to change. The numbers are huge that are coming into this country. They don't seem to be abating. What's different? What's she going to do that's different?
So if you ask her, she would tell you that everything is on the table. And I think that's a sensible starting point. That doesn't mean that we will do anything to solve this problem. I think you have to maintain some baseline level of decency. That's just who we are as Brits, really. But a big part of what she's doing is about diplomacy, because this is a global issue. These people who are coming to seek asylum are coming from halfway across the world. They're travelling through lots of different countries, as we know. So all of those countries have to work together in order to solve the problem. So the one-in, one-out deal with Germany, I think is going to be really useful, building on that concept to be able to send people back who fail their asylum claims. And
you have to prove that they came. You have to prove that they came through Germany, and they're difficult enough to prove where they've originated from, let alone what countries that they've been through in Europe, which doesn't have borders.
Completely, and you've put your finger on the issue here. This is a really, really complex problem. I think if it were easy, some government would have solved it by now, but it really underscores the challenge here. The other thing is meeting with the Five Eyes alliance, so the security alliance of English-speaking countries, because they're all facing these issues as well. The US has a problem to deal with asylum seekers. Australia's had it as well. And I think lessons we can learn from other countries with whom we share strong cultural bonds is really helpful.
But America, you say the US has problems. It has fewer problems now because of Donald Trump's policies. He's claiming that there have been 0 illegal entries in the last 4 months. I don't find that claim to be a legitimate one, but still, that is the language that America is using. We've seen ICE, we've seen what they're doing. While that might be unpalatable to a Labour government, it might not be unpalatable to a British population.
Well, again, I think one of the core British values is fair play and treating people with dignity. So I think there is a baseline.
But they've got to treat us. They have to treat us fairly too, right?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I think America has a different problem, and in some ways an easier challenge, because there's one border there, there's one country below it, and they have a lot of leverage over Mexico, so they can take those easier steps to be able to solve the problem. We have an altogether more complex problem because we are part of Europe. People are travelling through Europe. They're crossing a sea to get here, and we're sending them back to all sorts of different countries. So you don't just strike an agreement with one country, Mexico. You strike one with lots of different countries, as we know.
But America
is much harder problem here.
Sorry, just about in. America is also sending people to third countries. They're not just sending back to Mexico. They're not just sending back to the country, even the countries that these people originate from. They're being sent to third countries, which is something that it doesn't seem that this country or this government is keen to do. They cancelled the Rwanda project. Admittedly, that was flawed, but there's nothing to replace it apart from smash the gangs, which we know that's whack-a-mole. That's an empty promise.
I do think we will see third countries looked at as an option. As the Home Secretary has said, all options are on the table. The issue with Rwanda specifically was that the Tory government was trying to deport people before their asylum cases were heard. And that again comes back to that idea of fair play. We have to be a country where we at least give people a chance to make that claim. And then if it doesn't go their way, then we have to find somewhere to put them. But that was a slightly early point to deport someone, I thought.
Why are governments so allergic to the idea of having hubs where asylum seekers and refugees can apply outside of this country, and therefore we would be able to implement the rule that if you come by boat you are therefore immediately illegal? The only way for somebody to claim asylum or refugee status at the moment is on British soil or in British waters, right? We know that. That's how they get away with it. Why are all governments, it seems, so allergic to having hubs where people can apply outside of Britain?
It's a really great question, and I think it speaks to the complexity of this, but also the number of options on the table. There's so much to explore, and I don't think there will be
but
one. But
nobody's ever explored it. We've been having this problem really since Brexit. So, this has been going on a long time, and nobody ever seems to talk about the one obvious solution to the problem.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it definitely should be something that is explored. We have to look at every avenue to solve this problem. It's clearly something that voters really care about, and any government would want to solve the biggest issue or one of the biggest issues among the population. So I certainly wouldn't rule it out. The Home Secretary will look at that if she hasn't already. To be honest with you, I don't know.
Let's have a look at the deputy Labour deputy leader position now. You're probably too young to go up for the job. Are you fancying it?
You're never too young, but no, not one for me.
not one for you. Harriet Harman said that it has to be a woman. Do you agree with that?
So I see where she's coming from on that one, and I have some sympathy with that. Certainly when the names come out and we know who's standing, and when I'm casting my vote, I will be looking at contrast with the Prime Minister, because I think that job, the leader and the deputy leader, have to bring different things to the table, and they have to bring their own individual strengths. So whether that is gender or geography or any other kind of aspect of their background, that's definitely something I'll be bearing in mind when I come to put my cross in the box.
Yeah, you say geography. That's interesting, because that's already been mentioned in quite a few of the things that I've been reading today, having somebody outside of the London elite, outside of the London, graduates that seem to pepper through a Labour government, and to get somebody perhaps who's northern and female.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that
Angela Rayner would have been good
to the job. Well, that's it. She contrasted Keir Starmer really well, and I know the relationship wasn't always completely straightforward, but I think they were ultimately a good team, and they reached different parts of the voter base, and they were able to manage the party very well. So whilst maybe we don't go for a carbon copy, we try something new. No one's always going to be the same as the last person. There are many positive qualities of Angela Rayner that I think we would quite happily see in her replacement.
Emily Thornberry?
She may be one of them. She is a London MP, though, which would avoid that rule.
Yeah, true, but she's got something to prove, hasn't she, since Keir Starmer didn't take him with her into his cabinet?
And I don't necessarily say that she would be a troublemaker, but I do want to see somebody who is willing to be a team player, I think.
Doesn't Labour need a troublemaker?
Not at all. Not at all. We got rid of Jeremy Corbyn, didn't we?
Not quite.
I think from the party we certainly did. Yeah. I think if you think about any situation where there's a leader and a deputy, whether it's a CEO and a deputy CEO, or a head teacher and a deputy head teacher, you want people who can work together rather than people who are going to be clashing.
But don't you need somebody, in a democracy, to question Keir Starmer? He seems to be very fond, as most Prime Ministers are, to be fair, in surrounding himself with yes men, his bunch of boys, his boys club or whatever it's called. He likes the sound of those voices, McSweeney and all of those, Pat McFadden, all of those men. Doesn't he need somebody who's going to push back and say, listen, you're not doing this right, you made a mistake here, you're not God, you're a Prime Minister in a parliamentary democracy?
Yeah, I would hope that any deputy leader of the Labour Party would be a critical friend to the leader of the party. And we have that in the party. We were very broad-based. There are people with wide-ranging views. And so those robust clashes happen all the time. And I think it's all the better for it, because then we air all our ideas, we try them all out, and then the ones that emerge we take to the country, and they've been really thoroughly tested beforehand.
Emily Thornberry has written, I think it was in The Spectator, to say that she thinks that the country should give you more time. Do you agree with that? You've only been in a year. You haven't exactly covered yourselves in glory.
The reality of it is that Labour does have more time. They won a mandate until probably 2029.
It doesn't mean we have to trust you for 4 years.
Sure, but in a sense that isn't really relevant, because it's about what can Labour do in this time. I agree with you that Labour really has to prove itself. Of course it does. Any government that wants to be re-elected has to have something to show for itself come the end of its term. I think we've made a great start on that. There are really great reforms around. If you look at,
I'm being genuine, Sebastian. Do you genuinely think that? Because I can tell you, just as a straw poll, I've had so many messages today saying that they're sick of you already, and that they're not going to give you another chance. They know that they've got to wait this out. But words like torture and we're going to have no country left. If you genuinely think you've made a good start, I'm going to suggest you need to get out and listen to the public.
I think there's definitely a communications issue here. But if you think about what's happened, we've got people getting rights as workers that they've never had before, sick pay from day one.
Well, that hasn't gone through yet.
But it's going through, and it will be through by the end of this term. Renters' rights, banning no-fault evictions. No one can be thrown out of their home for no fault of their own, which is a fantastic.
Which is reducing the number of properties there are available for people to rent.
Yes, but if you think about the number of people who are renters, they are really going to benefit from that. Free breakfast clubs, extra childcare hours. These are things that are going to make tangible differences to people's lives. And remember, it's not just the people receiving them. If you have extra time because your child is in a breakfast club, you can then work, you can pay your taxes, you can contribute more to the Treasury, which then gets put towards more public services. So there's so much good stuff.
You've got a welfare bill that is mushrooming, and please don't say that we inherited that. Because the time for inheritance is over, right? There was a plan to cut the welfare bill. It was then the backbenchers said absolutely not. So please don't tell me you inherited that. But you've got so many problems that the public are seeing, and not least that they're feeling unlistened to. That you guys have got no clue what people are really saying and really thinking at the moment.
Look, I think our problems go back way further than even the last government. They go back to 2008, really. We suffered a financial crisis like nothing we've seen in our lifetimes. We've never really recovered from that as a country. We had the shock of Brexit, we had the shock of COVID, we had the shock of Liz Truss. So much has happened, and we're all still reeling from that. So it's no surprise that things, they are really hard. I completely get that. I feel that, people around me feel that, people in my community feel that. And it's about thinking about how can we help them. And so I think things like freeing them up, sending their children to free breakfast clubs, allowing them to work longer, giving them better rights, allowing them to stay in their homes, are ways of helping towards that. There is not going to be one solution that fixes everything. That would be complete fantasy to think
whilst
that.
At the same time, private rents have gone up because, as I said, the number of properties have gone down because landlords are being penalised, they feel. You've got people who are worried about their pensions. You've got people who feel as old people, you picked on them on almost day one trying to take their winter fuel allowance away. You've got people who feel really scared about passing on anything to their children because you can see Rachel Reeves has run out of ideas. We've got a budget coming up in October where we all fear the housing market is just crunched to a halt. People aren't spending. They're worried about what a Labour government is going to do to working people, and they can't even define what they are.
Well, let's start on the first point you made, which is around renters' rights and particularly about housing and rents going up. The biggest reason that rents are going up is because we aren't building enough houses. And that's why I'm really thrilled to see a government come in and admit that and say, yes, let's go for it.
How many have you built so far? You've had a year. How many have you built out of the 1.3 million you were going to build before the end of this term? How many?
1.5 million by the end of the term.
Okay, 1.5. How many have been built in a year?
I have absolutely no idea, so I'm not going to make up a number, but what I will say is that a lot of it depends on the
You can't then use that as an example. I'm sorry.
Of course I can, because
you can't use it as an example unless you can tell me. You've only got 5 years. In 1 year, you should have built some of them.
That's not how house building works, I'm afraid. But what we have got now is a housing secretary coming in, Steve Reed, who is saying, build, baby, build. And I'm loving that noise from him. That is exactly the attitude we need. Isn't it? We've got to cut the red tape and make sure that we can build homes for people to live in. That's one of the biggest things this government can do to improve people's lives for the better. It's a long-term plan. You can't magic up a house.
Well, no, but you did. Sorry, Angela Reid, she said she was going to magic up 1.5 million in 5 years. So will we get them?
Do you know what? I will say this with no fear of repercussions. If we even get half of that target, we'll be doing really well. That is a stretch target.
It's still half of the target, isn't it?
Yes, but that's another 750,000 houses that we didn't have before that are desperately needed. So any house, I will take it, frankly.
Okay. I set my sights a little bit higher. But thank you very much indeed. Great to talk to you. Sebastian Salek there, Labour councillor and commentator. Quick break, back in a sec.
You think there's an easier and a swifter solution?
Yeah, there is. The easier and swifter solution is the second that that boot steps onto the British sand, they need to be arrested, they need to be detained, and then they need to be deported. And if you have videos of that going all over social media, instead of videos of people being put onto a coach, sent off to a hotel, getting 3 square meals a day, plus freedom to go into the local town and do what they want, plus pocket money and all these extra perks that even the British people don't get.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, good afternoon. This is Talk, this is Drive Time, and it's Petrie Hosken here with you until 7 o'clock. And I'm still looking to take your calls on whether you think you should cut Labour some slack. That's basically what Emily Thornberry's saying, that we need to give them a chance. They've only been in for a year and they can turn things around. Do you trust that Labour can turn things around? Give me a call, 0344 499 1000. Now, though, it is time to turn our attention to some police matters with the fabulous Peter Bleksley, former Met Police detective. Peter, hello.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon. I know, before we get into it, I know my boy would want to say, pass on his best to you. So, because I know you've worked with him somewhere else. Now, listen, Mr. Bleksley, let's start with the new Home Secretary and the idea that the top cop will be drafting new laws to present to the new Home Secretary at halting police investigations into offensive online posts. What does this mean as far as you're concerned?
Well, it's about blooming time that the police got their act together over so much that they have got manifestly wrong when it comes to policing comments made on social media platforms. We've seen overreach. They've gone beyond the remit of policing. We've seen overkill in terms of the numbers of officers that have sometimes been deployed to people's houses or an airport to make a very simple inquiry. And of course, this is where Sir Mark Rowley, the Commissioner of the Met, and every other police chief in the land really contradict themselves, because they say we act independently. The police and crime commissioners are merely there for oversight purposes. We police without fear or favour. We police without political interference. And yet Rowley is now saying, well, we've had too much political interference over these spats, over these issues that have been so prevalent in the public eye and public discourse. So now we need some guidance. And Rowley and his team are going to draw up those guidelines.
Do you think that the police as a collective force have become too political themselves in the kind of things that they will see as offensive and they will see as not offensive?
Yes, I'm afraid that policing has moved away from being a crime-fighting force into a social service, a police service. And consequently, it's been blown around by the political breeze of the day and whatever direction that might be blowing in. And of course, so much of policing has become woke, liberal, politicised, influenced by senior officers' experiences at universities. And if you need any proof of that, you've got the utterly appalling and discredited College of Policing and the National Police Chiefs Council, who really do not police like the public want. The public want the police to patrol the streets, prevent crime, investigate it where it happens, and lock up bad people. And in so many ways, unfortunately, they are failing us.
But is that because these are easy crimes for them to solve, if you like, that it pushes their numbers up of solved crimes? They can sit in a nice warm office, they can just go through Twitter and track somebody down, and that's a crime solved. It goes on the books.
No, it's because of overreach. It's because with their heads so full of pseudo-intellectual claptrap at universities, they've overreached. They've completely gone beyond the Peelian principles that were laid down by Sir Robert Peel nearly 200 years ago. And if anybody goes online and reads them, you'll find just how apposite and relevant they are to policing today. But the police have gone way beyond that. It is actually not their job to police free speech. That was never what the police were intended for. Of course, if blatant speech turns out into hate or threats that might have some kind of consequences in the real world, then that has to be acted upon.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, Peter, because a lot of people mistake the right to say anything with the wrong of inciting hatred or violence. So that's where the line has always been drawn, actually. I mean, it's not new at all. But so the police will still, presumably, if somebody does step over that line and incite violence, incite, hatred, that is still a crime. But if somebody's just offensive, that's fine.
Yes, let me hypothesise for a moment, if I may, and I'll keep it fairly brief. If you go on social media, for example, if somebody went on there and said, fill a jerry can with petrol and I'll meet you at the bottom of the high street at 12 noon and we'll go and burn the place to the ground, then that would be a clear incitement and quite potentially a conspiracy to commit a very serious criminal offence, which would have to be acted upon. But if somebody said, oh, do you know what? I wish that such and such a building didn't exist, then that's just a mere statement with no kind of real world consequences, so shouldn't be acted upon. And we've seen the police way overstretching their remit, venturing into social media, and consequently they've got themselves often in a very dreadful tangle and an unpopular tangle, and public confidence in the police continues to tank, unfortunately.
Well, it's not just the police, is it? I mean, this is an extraordinary story as well, Peter. Judge sparks fury after wishing the 7-7 kingpin all the best as he prepares to walk free despite fears he's still a threat. The police were angry about this too.
I've been reading the transcripts of what this judge said to Aswad, who basically is a committed Islamist jihadist. He has travelled the world before being incarcerated, encouraging people to commit terrorism atrocities wheresoever he's been. The man is an absolute danger, but unfortunately has spent some years locked up in Broadmoor Psychiatric Hospital and has been able to wangle his release. And the judge chummied up to him in court. And it was more like a conversation you might expect between a social worker and one of their clients, rather than a senior judge and a convicted terrorist about to be released onto the streets of the UK. Now, the police are deeply, deeply upset about this man's release. And whilst he was not convicted for anything in relation to that atrocity on 7-7, there would appear, I believe, to be some evidence that I think needs to be looked at now. Every scrap of information, every scrap of intelligence, any evidence that exists, all needs to be looked at across the years to try and identify any offences whereby a file can be put to the Crown Prosecution Service and maybe this man can be charged with an offence, and if convicted, he'll end up back where he belongs, which is in prison.
Yeah, I mean that's the only thing open, isn't it? After he's been released from a mental health facility, if he is now rearrested, do you think the police will be working on that?
I think they have to look at every scrap of everything they've ever known about this man and see if there are some offences for which there is enough evidence to put him on trial.
I mean, he's linked not just to 7-7, isn't he? He's 9/11. He's linked to a lot of atrocities across the world.
Oh, yes, and other terrorist atrocities around the globe. The man has been a committed Islamist jihadist. He really does not deserve to be on the streets of Batley in Yorkshire, which is where he will very soon be, if not there already.
And just very quickly, the judge himself, what do you make of this all the best?
Our judiciary, for which I used to have unending and unwavering respect, is being influenced by kind of the judges are almost becoming activists themselves, and we've seen that because various newspapers and some journalists have done a deep dive into the background of many of our judges, and we're finding just what activists they are. Well, you have a choice, as I see it. You're either an impartial judge or you're an activist. You most definitely should not be both.
Peter Blakesley, thank you very much indeed. Former Met Police detective there. Quick break, back in a sec.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, good afternoon. This is Talk and it is drive time, and it's Petrie here with you, in for Jeremy Kyle, who will be back with you tomorrow. Now, anyone who listens to my late night programme will know that I am totally into tech. I don't know anything about it. I'm not a nerd with it, but I'm fascinated by it. AI, particularly AI and robots, obviously, because that is our future world, isn't it? So I found a couple of stories today which I just thought, I've got to talk about these. I've got to find out more about these. And joining me to help me through it is Jasper Hamill, who's a former online tech editor at The Sun. Jasper, thank you very much indeed for joining me. I mean, I'm not a nerd. I'm hoping you are.
I am a bit of a nerd. I'm quite cool as well with it.
Oh, no, I'm sure you're cool. But I think nerds are cool. I mean, I genuinely do. I want to first start with Tesla, if I can. And this is the Tesla diner with robots serving popcorn. And so, I mean, look, we're all used to a few robotic waitresses in our time, but is this the future for us?
It's certainly a bold move from Elon Musk. I mean, Elon Musk generally is trying to explore Mars, roll out electric cars, dig tunnels with his wittily named Boring Company, and generally change the world. So this is kind of a bit of a venture into consumer life. So it's an American-style diner serving very much American-style food, apart from iced kombucha, which is kind of a bit trendier, and something he calls a sort of strange green milkshake, and it's this very futuristic looking diner that looks like something out of the Jetsons, and so far it's proved quite popular. Elon Musk is a polarizing figure. You know, he's kind of jumped in to the American culture wars where people are very passionate on both sides, so obviously he's going to get some pushback, but on Google reviews it's getting 4 stars out of 5. People seem quite positive, and it seems to have been welcomed so far. It looks like, you know, quite a nice place, I think.
But I mean, are people just going for the novelty value at this stage? I mean, it's not something we really want in the future. I mean, I won't even use the self-checkout in supermarkets because I find them offensive. But I like humans. Well, I don't like all of them, but, you know, sometimes it's nice to have human interactions, isn't it?
Oh, I'm with you. I detest those automated checkouts, particularly because it just seems to have been an excuse to cut back on the number of humans. So now you have one person manning the fag stall, cigarette stall, stacking the shelves, doing the Uber delivery drives, and trying to stop you from falling foul of these awful checkouts, you know. So I loathe them too. I think it's quite a human place so far, Elon Musk's diner. He has got these humanoid robots, you know. I don't mean to cast aspersions. How much they are replacing humans yet, I think, is, you know, up for debate, certainly in the future. And I don't think there's any, you know, chance of humans disappearing full stop from these places. 'Cause we've had sort of various kind of gimmicky restaurants, haven't we? You know, there's those places that serve sushi on conveyor belts, and all that kind of stuff. There was somewhere in London Bridge, actually, wasn't there? Cynthia's Robot Bar.
Yeah, and I think they've got them in Japan as well, where small robots will come and take your order. I don't think they're capable of delivering the order yet without tripping over, but they, you know, I suppose there is this move towards it.
Yeah, there's been some brilliant footage, actually. We've got these kind of, they look like hampers on wheels, I guess, or ice boxes on wheels that kind of, you know, pootle about very slowly around city streets delivering people's food. But of course, you know, if you're a sort of ne'er-do-well and you see one of them go past, give it a kick, you've got a free dinner.
Yeah.
And indeed, that's what people have been doing. And, you know, what are you going to do about it? You know, they haven't got any sort of defense mechanisms. And I can't imagine, you know, your food delivery robot's going to get a sort of R2-D2 style zapper to deter sort of ruffians. More's the pity.
Or unless Amazon's doing it, and then they might. and then they just might, to protect stuff. Because we're going to get Amazon drones soon, aren't we, delivering our parcels?
I think that's highly likely. I read a lot of the patents which indicate not necessarily what companies are going to do, but what they've been researching. And some of the stuff that Amazon has considered is insane. One of them, for instance, was a sort of a floating Zeppelin that was basically a floating warehouse. And out of that floating warehouse, if it ever built this, would come drones with your packages. So you'd have this floating Amazon warehouse going all around the city delivering your packages by drones, which, to be honest, is kind of scary, really. But,
I'm seeing that already as something from Alien movies. You know, that's invasion type movies. We won't be able to tell the difference by the time the aliens come. The other thing, AI. I mean, I love AI when it is matched with medicine. I think that is an extraordinary breakthrough, really, that AI can read X-rays and MRIs and come up with different uses for drugs, because it can read all the papers written on a drug in 2 seconds rather than years. So I'm fascinated by that. This, on the other hand, creeps me out. And this is the rise of AI grief bots, bringing loved ones and stars back from the dead. And it's a business that could be worth $1.2 billion.
Absolutely. This, I think, is quite a dark innovation, really, isn't it?
Yeah, creepy.
Because you can clone the voices, you can clone the faceness and the likeness, you can clone the mannerisms. Fraudsters, for instance, are using those capabilities to clone our voices and steal stuff. But in the future, already people are paying subscriptions to clone their poor old mum and dad. And then when mum and dad disappear, you've got a kind of a virtual representation, which I think is sinister, but probably quite damaging, really, because I had a lot of bereavement actually as a kid, and I had a tough mum from King's Cross, and she used to talk about the Get a Grip school of psychology, which is that the best way to deal with difficult things is to forget them, laugh about the good times and try and forget the bad times. And if you're going home to sort of like weep over a much missed loved one's virtual representation, I don't think that's healthy, personally.
It's an odd thing, isn't it? It really is. And a lot of people who want to have conversations with dead celebrities, and I suppose with AI, like you said, being able to mimic. Even from you just being on with me today, there's enough footage there to completely clone you. There's definitely enough footage of me and my various odd hand gestures that they could really do a good copy of me.
They absolutely could.
Where's the soul? Not the soul. I don't believe in a soul, but where's the heart of a person? And are you're just getting a cheap copy that, as you say, holds you back from the grieving process, I would have thought.
Well, that seems to be the case. Certainly there was a report on it today, and it quoted sort of child psychologists saying this is going to be damaging for children. It's going to be damaging for grown-ups, I think, as well. There's another kind of side to it, which is the celebrity side. People are paying to see digital knockoffs of dead celebrities. Tupac, for instance. I think we're looking at Ozzy Osbourne, and which is kind of less sinister, but still a bit weird. I think sometimes it's nice to let the dead be dead. And I guess it points to this kind of wider and rather sinister fact about the rest of society, is that the internet and technology won't let us disappear. That mistake you made 10 or 15 years ago is forever. And now, of course, you are forever. So if you're not careful, you might live on in all your awfulness for, I'm not talking about you.
Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. But it also raises a question for me, Jasper, is who owns us? Who owns me? Who owns you? Who owns Ozzy Osbourne? Because if they're able to, and they are, reproduce him as your friend, if you like, you go home and have a chat with Ozzy Osbourne, that's not fair on his family, on his wife, on his children. There's that ownership issue as well, isn't there, about who does own us in the end?
Well, that's a fascinating question, and one that hadn't actually occurred to me until now. I guess realistically, whoever owns you is the company that makes the model that's reproduced you. So we know there have been major tech companies. I wrote about a major tech company that had designed a way of cloning its users so they could continue posting messages on social media after they died, which
awful.
Is just awful, absolutely. And I think presumably your digital likeness is probably owned by the company. Certainly that would seem to be a grey area, but you wouldn't want your ashes kind of given to Mark Zuckerberg to look after when you're dead and gone, would you? But so
absolutely
good
not.
Into likeness. Who owns us? It's a great question, and it does make you think. Possibly not ourselves.
Definitely not ourselves, I would say. I've opened a can of worms for you, Jasper. It's great to talk to you. Really interesting. Thank you very much indeed for joining me. Jasper Hamill there, former online tech editor at The Sun newspaper. Right, I'm taking a quick break, but I will be back.
You think there's an easier and a swifter solution?
Yeah, there is. The easier and swifter solution is the second that that boot steps onto the British sand, they need to be arrested, they need to be detained, and then they need to be deported. And if you have videos of that going all over social media, instead of videos of people being put onto a coach, sent off to a hotel, getting 3 square meals a day, plus freedom to go into the local town and do what they want, plus pocket money and all these extra perks that even the British people don't get.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, this is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you until 7 o'clock. And now it's time for sport. Oh, multicam's frozen. So there you go. I tried to do my very best there. There's supposed to be a sport thing. Anyway, Dean Scoggins is with me, Deputy Head of Sport at The Sun newspaper. Sorry about the technical hitch.
No problem.
Talk to me about Manchester City, because just in the break there we were talking and I got the wrong financial rules problem.
Yes,
because
you won't be the first person or the last person to have done that.
So explain to me what's going on with this.
Yes, so this before fans get very excited with the legal case that's reached agreement today with Manchester City in the Premier League. This is not the 130 charges which have been brought against Manchester City for financial infringements, which Man City obviously deny.
Yeah.
But this is about APT, so associated party transactions, which basically means in very easy to understand terms, if one of your owners or shareholders has a company, they can't just give you money. So as a sponsorship deal, there has to be, there has to be rules and regulations around that.
So if you've got a billionaire sponsor, you can't just shove you a couple of $100 million.
Or Emirates or Qatar Airways. So these were brought in when Newcastle United were taken over by the Saudis. So you can't just pump money into the club. It has to be financial, an even playing field. So yes, they can sponsor you, but it has to be at the market rate. So Manchester City tried to go at the Premier League and declare these rules invalid as part of this case. The Premier League hit back, dug their heels in, and now, quite surprisingly, the pair of them have agreed. So Manchester City have agreed that they can stick to the rules, but the Premier League have basically agreed to let Man City complete their next huge sponsorship deal with Etihad, which they deem as within the rules now.
It sounds like they've capitulated a bit, though.
It feels a little bit like they've declared a draw and a truce in this one because they know the big one over the 130 charges is to come down the line. Now, we keep getting told that's imminent. We'll find out the results soon. Now, whether soon is 3 weeks, 3 months or 3 years, we're not quite sure.
But it's been hanging around a while now.
It has been hanging around a long time, and Arsenal fans, Liverpool fans, Man United fans who want Manchester City stripped of their titles will have to wait a little bit longer. And for Man City fans, this does mean that a lovely new 60-70 million pound sponsorship deal will boost their coffers for January transfer window.
But how is that within the rules? If you've got this massive Etihad, for example, or Saudi Arabia, or you've got whoever, a famous Hollywood star who's got loads of money, how is that fair to people who don't have those sponsors? Or does everybody have somebody with deep pockets?
Yeah, everybody has that, and the capability to go and sell those as well. So, but Manchester City and not just Manchester City, all the clubs will then put together a case of what their shirt sponsor is worth, what their sleeve sponsor is worth, what their stadium sponsorship is worth, and then obviously that then goes to the highest bidder. But in these cases, obviously the highest bidder is always
their sponsor. Right. Yeah. Okay. British business executive Amanda Staveley has been linked with a bid to buy Tottenham Hotspur.
Yes.
Been denied.
Absolutely.
What's really going on?
She won't get it. So Daniel Levy, the Tottenham executive chairman, left his post, was forced out of his post last week. And now the Lewis family, who own Spurs, have put a new leadership board in. The speculation over the last week has been that they're ready to sell, to cash in on an asset worth about £2.5 to £3 billion, including the stadium. Amanda Staveley always pops up in these scenarios. She tried to buy, she was part of the Newcastle takeover. She's tried to buy other football clubs. But
who is she?
So she's a British businesswoman, has been part of the takeovers of football clubs before. Very, very successful.
And does she want them for herself, or is
she's part of a consortium, and she'll front the consortium to do so. So the Qataris are very interested in taking a Premier League football club, but at the moment, ENIC, who owns Spurs, are saying, you're not having us. We're very comfortable where we are. And Vinay Venkatesham, the Spurs CEO, has actually come out today and said that the family are all in, all behind it for silverware. They're all guns blazing to stay at the football club. So where Daniel Levy has always been seen as the front man of it, and always the speculation was when Levy goes, they'll sell the club, it seems that's not what they're trying to do. Martin Lipton, our reporter, who's fantastic at these type of stories, has written a piece in the paper for tomorrow talking about how it's most likely that they will now pump money into the club, because the Tottenham are a very profitable club, so they don't spend as much as they earn. They're saying that they'll boost the playing staff, they'll pay off a big chunk of the stadium to make the club even more valuable to then sell in a couple of years' time. So.
Is that a particularly nerve-wracking time for the fans?
Well, I'm a Tottenham fan, so it's a strange time, because lots of the Tottenham fans have wanted Daniel Levy out because they believe he hasn't spent enough money on players. But I think that it's always a case of be careful what you wish for when a club's been so stable for a long time. Fabulous new stadium in the Champions League, won the Europa League last year. Now, I'm not a Levy sympathiser before the Tottenham fans start shouting at me, but I would say that football is can be quite unstable, and when you've got a club that's as successful business-wise as Spurs,
it's not a business. It's a sport, right?
They're all businesses.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, but there will be people who say, a stable, safe team that isn't pumping in the money for new players and new blood and things like that, it's not at the heart of the sport.
No,
it's more about making it a good business rather than making it what it's meant to be.
And hopefully, from a Tottenham point of view now, they've made it a good business, and now they'll be able to by very good young players, which only increases the club even more.
There you go. And going back to Man City, the striker Erling Haaland, I saw him with.
A freakish sport injury. So he was hit by the team bus door as he was getting.
That's so uncool.
Bus. Yeah,
that's so uncool.
Yeah. So he posted it three stitches of trip to the dentist to make sure everything was okay before Norway's game, and it's inspired us, as we always do in this scenario, to find football's freakiest injuries. And so you can see those on the Sun website, including Dave Besant, who once dropped a bottle of salad cream on his foot and tore a tendon in his big toe.
I once dropped a bottle of wine on my foot and broke my big toe.
That's a waste of wine.
I know, and I was fuming. And also, I fell out of bed and broke my shoulder once.
Oh dear!
But nothing cool.
No,
I should have. It should have been skiing or kicking. So I don't know. It should have been.
But that's
something.
Exactly what these are. There's a load of these from kicking cool boxes to breaking fingers playing table tennis. So yeah, nothing cool in there.
Nothing cool. I look for that's in tomorrow's Sun.
That's it. Yeah.
I shall be pouring through those. I like those. Great to meet you. Thank you for coming in. Dean Scoggins there, Deputy Head of Sport at The Sun. So that was The Sun Sport.
Sports news from The Sun.
Thank you. Right, so Dean's still here. Thank you. I have to crawl under the camera now. That's it. So if you banged your head on that, that could be in the paper tomorrow. Right, so coming up, there is still more to come on this drive time programme. We will be checking out the rest of the stories, actually, that are coming up in The Sun. We're also, for tomorrow, and Rupert Bell will be here, a royal correspondent, to talk through what on earth is Harry doing here, and does he really want to come back? We'll find out more about that in the next hour. Don't go anywhere.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, good afternoon, or evening, I suppose it is now, at 6 o'clock. It's Petrie Hosken here with you for the next hour in for Jeremy Kyle. And I've been asking all the way through the afternoon here, Emily Thornberry, who, as you know, she was a bit biffed by Sir Keir Starmer. She had a good position in the shadow government, but then as soon as they were in government, Keir Starmer went, no, I don't want you. But anyway, she's preparing to enter the Labour deputy leadership race. So she fancies herself as deputy leader, although she's a London MP. I think they're looking for somebody who's from up north or Wales or somewhere like that. But anyway, we don't know. And it's the party that vote for them anyway. But she has said to us to give Labour more time, that they've only been in for a year, but they need a bit more time. So I've been asking you whether you feel inclined to give them that time. I mean, there won't be an early election, okay, we know that. Governments who are really doing badly in the polls never call an early election. I can see them getting rid of Keir Starmer in the next after the next year or so that he's not the one taking them into the next election. But the election will be a late election. I'd hate to break that to Reform, but they won't get an early election. And so many of you have actually sent me messages, but I'll get to those in a minute. We've got some breaking news here. I had a feeling this was going to happen. The French government has now collapsed as MPs vote of no confidence in their Prime Minister. Their Prime Minister is out. French Prime Minister François Bayrou has lost the vote of confidence he called in his government. France's National Assembly has voted by 364 votes to 194 to eject him from office and bring down his minority government. Another 25 MPs have abstained. I think this is the third Prime Minister under Emmanuel Macron. France is in a terrible situation at the moment financially. It's looking like they're going to have to go to the IMF, to the International Monetary Fund, for some kind of loan. Production in France has dropped. GDP has dropped. It's doing, and of course, trying to cut anything back in France, you're going to get complaints from the people. I mean, they're very, very good at complaining very, very loudly, the French, as we know. I think a while ago they tried to increase the pension age by a couple of months, and people came out on the streets and said, no, you're not doing that, we've earned that money. So France is in a very, very difficult situation. It's 5 prime ministers under Macron. Oh, I thought it was only 3. 5. So there you go. The French government has collapsed as MPs vote to oust the Prime Minister. I think the writing was on the wall with François Bayrou. Anyway, so that has now happened to Macron's country yet again. So we'll bring you more on that if there is any more to bring. But let me get back to your messages. Erwa. That's such a sexy name, Erwa, if I'm saying it right, has said Labour are excellent at spending money, but constantly swerve the most important issue, growing the economy. All they're doing is enlarging the black hole with no plans to reduce our debt. And Nigel said, to be given a second chance, Labour need to replace Starmer and Reeves. A general election will happen next year, as the financial markets will demand it. They can't demand it, and it won't happen, I'm afraid. I can see Starmer going next year. I can see a leadership election next year, but they won't call a general election, and they still have a majority. So we'll agree to disagree on that. And Becca said, I don't trust Labour to run a bath, let alone this country. There you go. So thank you for those. Right, let's move on and have a chat now with William Clouston, who's a leader of the Social Democratic Party. William, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed for joining me. So there's going to be a deputy party leader campaign in the Labour camp. Is that going to be polite or is it going to be rude, do you think?
Well, it's pretty fractious in Labour. I think it'll be hotly contested. It's a very factional party, isn't it? And of course, just like the cabinet reshuffle, it's not ideal for Starmer because it's been forced on him. I mean, he probably would have made changes anyway, but obviously Rayner going has forced his hand there. So no, it's a very factional party. There'll be bitter fights for that position, I'm sure.
Do you think, just talking about Rayner, do you think that story has been diluted somewhat about the reshuffle, or do you think that my colleagues in newspapers are just sharpening their teeth in the interim, and they're going to come back with some more stuff on Rayner? I have a feeling it's not over.
Well, there were reports in the Telegraph newspaper about the valuation of the house that she changed in the northwest and so on. I don't know. Maybe I suspect it may. If she wants it to be the end, it's probably the end if she keeps quiet. But it's not ideal. I mean, it's more change, more chaos for a government that's failing, and all they can do. Their reaction to each of these challenges is just more PR and sort of rehashes. I think Starmer called it phase 2. You know, phase 1 has been pretty much a disaster. Virtually every metric, whether it's the fiscal situation, growth, housing, energy, you name it, pretty much they failed across the board. Small boats situations very chaotic. So no, it's a challenge for the Labour Party, and it's a challenge for the country. I mean,
to be fair, you would say that in opposition, right? I mean, but in truth. Because I mean the Tories, I don't even know where they are really at the moment. But you know, in truth, is it really as bad? Put down party politics at the moment, and just look at what Labour has achieved or not achieved so far in this year. Are they really to blame for all of it?
Well, just let's take two big things that are very important to people. Okay, the small boats crisis, the channel crossings. That's worse. You know, it's worse on their watch. They were elected on Smash the Gangs, which is just another bit of PR rhetoric. It's not a serious proposal. And I think Mahmood is one of the better, by accounts, one of the more able people, but she can't solve the crisis because she has no means to solve the crisis. Labour, it's not a problem actually, this for Labour, it's a predicament. They can't solve it because unless they get out of the international legal architecture, which makes this flow a permanent feature now and changes the incentives, she can't actually do it. I mean, they're talking about bilateral deals with Germany, France and other countries. That won't lift the needle. It won't change anything at all. What they need to do, they can't do. So I think the country's actually stuck on that. So sadly, I mean, I want them to succeed. I want the British government to govern well. I want good governance. But you won't succeed on that. And then on housing, which is the other area, which is vitally important, particularly for young people, no, the metrics are in. I mean, Q1 was behind what it was in Q1 the previous year. Q2's just in. Consents, the House Builders Federation have confirmed that consents are down. So they're nowhere near the target of 1.5 million. And actually, Petrie, when they make these claims, again, they say, we will build these. No, they won't. The government, state house building is standing at about 5,000 units a year. Is negligible.
I have to say, you've really touched on something that annoys the teeth out of me, and that is, you know, we're building houses because the only truly affordable house at the moment is a state-supported property, and we are not building any of those. And so I'm really glad or very few, I'm really glad that you pointed that out because that drives me nuts.
It's frustrating. I mean, I chair a council in Northumberland. We've built a small community council. We built 4. I think we're about the only community council in the country that did it. We did it because we were committed to it. But no, it's very sad. I mean, young people are not getting a look in here. 5,000. If you go back to 10 years before I was born in 1965, 1955, post-war austerity, real bomb site austerity, rationing, the government built over 200,000 homes. Now they're building 5,000. And all they can do is say, well, we hope the private sector does it for us. But actually, the private sector has never built much more than 170, 180,000 a year. So, it's just very frustrating. And we know a little bit about the housing sector. I look at that domain and they have no chance whatsoever. I wish they did.
I agree. I mean, the private housing sector doesn't want to build 1.5 million properties because, like diamonds, if there were too many of them on the market, they lose their value. And that's the problem that this government has in putting or any government in putting the house building into the hands of the people who profit from house building, right?
Yeah, I mean, the state sector capacity in house building is deliberately destroyed. It faded under Thatcher, was destroyed under New Labour, hasn't been built up since then. So it's like a bird, you need two wings to fly. And we say, unless in the SDP, unless you can rebuild this sector, young people have no chance at all. And it's very, very frustrating. Meanwhile, we spend 35 billion on housing benefits, subsidising people's rents because rents are high. Why are rents high? Because we don't build any houses. They only spend about 12 billion building the houses. So it's unless the government can change that metric and start investing again, then I'm afraid we don't have a future in this area. So I'm frustrated by it. I don't want to come on the TV and complain. I want positive action to make things better for the country. But unfortunately, I can't. And energy, don't get me started on Miliband. Disgrace. I mean, we have an energy crisis.
Yeah. I mean, look, but partly you do want to come in and say that they're not doing very well. Partly, just a little bit. Because that's politics, right? But I totally get your point. But when we're looking at Keir Starmer's government, and now we see this reshuffle, remodel, whatever it is, I've been asking everybody this afternoon, what does that tell you? Because Keir Starmer never tells us what his direction is. So what does that reshuffle tell you about his direction on, let's have a look at welfare benefits for a start, sticking Pat McFadden in there?
Well, best of luck with it, because when the last time, you've got to remember, the Labour Party enjoyed the biggest parliamentary majority since the early 1800s. And they ought to be able to get something through. If Starmer wants to get something through the Commons, he ought to be able to do it. When they tried to have a look at disability benefit and so on, it failed. I mean, that is the predicament the country's in. You've elected people that can't really make these hard choices, and I'm afraid you do have to make these hard choices. We are living on borrowed money, on borrowed time, and unless if the French government's fallen, the French government hasn't had a budget surplus since 1972. A lot of Western countries, there's the problems are coming in now, and we have to deal with it. You have to elect people that can actually govern properly, and I don't see much of a sign of it, I'm afraid. They need to reform some of the stuff.
Do you mean that they've got to be tougher on it? And I mean, and literally, Keir Starmer's got to say, I'm sorry, I've got to do this. I don't care whether you like it or not. I've got another 4 years for you to get over it. I'm just doing it.
Yes, because we're spending huge billions and billions of pounds, not just the chaos of migrant hotels, which is billions, but it's nothing compared to the welfare budget. The welfare budget is basically mopping up the blood of deindustrialization and lack of investment. And it's extremely expensive. I've argued many times it'd be cheaper to keep the factories open. It's desperately expensive, and that's the predicament we're in. But unless you can start investing again in infrastructure and industry and start building things up, you'll never get out of it. I mean, so I'm afraid, yes, it's going to be very tough. Just like the energy crisis, unless you start building some power, grid power again, baseload, it's going to be expensive. And I'm afraid you can't afford the welfare bill that we've got. That's just the reality. It's not an argument against, it's not ideology, it's just mathematics, I'm afraid.
I mean, even the CEO of Octopus, which I think is the country's biggest supplier, was saying today that Greg Jackson, I'm trying to remember his name, Greg Jackson. He was saying today, look, it's cheaper and more environmentally friendly if we pump our own gas. We've got to reopen those sites. But Ed Miliband, he doesn't see it that way.
Well, it's crazy. I mean, it's utterly insane. You've got 40 billion worth of energy imports. It's just, why did we do this? They've actually structured it to enrich good for the Norwegians who are selling us the gas, and good for the French who are selling us nuclear power via the interconnectors. But we, as a country, we cannot afford to import that. You've got to produce the power here. And the frustrating thing, Petrie, is we've got the power. They could grant an extension to Rosebank and Shetland and get them pumping oil. They could expand gas production in the North Sea. They could even do fracking in Lincolnshire. But he's ideologically against all of this stuff. And in net zero, his program is just too much too quickly. You're getting rid of a power source, hydrocarbons and gas, which is so efficient you can tax it, and you're replacing it with something which is so inefficient you have to subsidize it. But if you kill your tax base, there's no money to subsidize it. Crazy.
Yeah. The unintended consequences are often the feast of governments, aren't they? I mean, they try to do the best thing and then it just implodes. I'm thinking about Ms Mahmood now as Home Secretary, and this drive to match reform, if you like, it seems that the Labour government is trying to do in wanting, I don't know why governments want to be popular, but there's this whole drive to be popular rather than actually doing the work, as we've discussed. But they're talking about putting immigrants now, people who are waiting to see if they're going to get legal status or not, into old military barracks and perhaps even into warehouses. That has been tried before, and it turned out to be more expensive. The bill is higher than putting those people into hotels. So do you think that they'll just go ahead with it for populist reasons rather than actual fiscal, propriety?
It doesn't work in any of those terms. I mean, every single time you try and put large-scale detention on barracks, the people living near the barracks get up in arms about it, quite rightly, because they've never been consulted and it's just imposed. Same as the hotels. It's a mess. I'm sorry on this. I'm just going to tell you, you will not solve this crisis unless we stop giving people asylum. You've got to break the model. I know it sounds very tough, but unless you dismantle the outdated legal architecture from the post-war period, and then have proper deterrence, i.e., I mean, the STP's policy is to any unsolicited arrival gets taken to Ascension. You can stay there for 2 years, and then you go back to where you're from. That, I'm afraid that sounds tough, but it would solve the problem. You can't have an open border like this; it just get worse. It's getting worse, and Mahmood is highly regarded, but she won't solve this crisis because she doesn't have the means to solve it, because they're fettered. Because Starmer is a human rights lawyer, and it's beyond their ken to do it. So I'm afraid they won't be able to do a reform. I mean, reform is not too good on this either. We've offered them our policy of offshore detention. They should take it for the country's sake. But it's a mess. And the country's crying out for some leadership.
And Emily Thornberry, who has thrown her hat into the ring, apparently, so we're being told, as to be the Labour deputy leader, she's saying that this government needs to listen to the public more. Are they capable of that? I mean, it feels like they're not.
Well, if they listen to the public, I mean, 70% plus now think mass immigration is out of control, and that's legal migration, by the way, which is massive. No, I don't think so. I mean, I bless them. They'll try some PR. They'll try this and that. And actually, Emily Thornberry probably has the sort of base that might be successful in getting the position of deputy leader. We'll find out in the nominations later this month. But it's factional because she was, Starmer bypassed her, didn't give her a cabinet position, so you've got more division at the top of government. So I'm afraid we are in a very difficult position. People are crying out for good governance, serious parties. And they're not finding it, I'm afraid.
No, it is, and it just hands the country into other people's hands as well. It's a very worrying time politically. William, pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much indeed. William Clouston, leader of the Social Democratic Party. Okay, I'm going to take a quick break, but I'm back in just a moment.
You think there's an easier and a swifter solution?
Yeah, there is. The easier and swifter solution is the second that that boot steps onto the British sand, they need to be arrested, they need to be detained, and then they need to be deported. And if you have videos of that going all over social media, instead of videos of people being put onto a coach, sent off to a hotel, getting 3 square meals a day, plus freedom to go into the local town and do what they want, plus pocket money and all these extra perks that even the British people don't get.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, this is Talk, and this is Drive, and this is Petrie Hosken, and I'm here with you until 7 o'clock when, of course, Kevin will be back. He's back from his holidays, so he'll be back with you from 7 until 10. And Johnny Gould is sitting in for me 10 until 1. So there you go, that's your schedule for the rest of the day. Just to update you on this breaking news, the French Prime Minister, François Bayrou, has lost the vote of confidence that he called in his government. And actually, it turns out, since Macron became president, which is just over 8 years, he was elected president in 2017, this will be the next one will be the 7th Prime Minister. I mean, it makes the Tories look like they're just, sensible party with hardly any Prime Ministers. But, yeah, so François is the 6th to go under Macron. And so the next one will be the 7th. Let me talk you through them. Edouard Philippe, Macron's longest-serving Prime Minister, 3 years and 49 days. Jean Castex is 1 year, 317 days. Ooh, close. Elizabeth Bourne, second woman in charge, 1 year and 238 days. Gabriel Attal was 240 days. Michel Barnier, we all remember him, don't we, from the old Brexit days, 90 days. I think he's the what's her name, Liz Truss, definitely the lettuce of the pack. And François Bayrou has just lost the vote and was elected in that's embarrassing, 13th of December 24. Yeah, so actually outdoing Michel Barnier, but not by much. So there you go. So the next one will be the 7th in 8 years. Problems. Right, I've been asking you all through this afternoon as to whether you believe that you should cut this Labour government some slack, basically. Emily Thornberry is saying, look, we've only been in a year, give us a chance. We're stuck with them to a degree, but I've been asking you if you are patient enough. Damien says, give them more time. 1 year is twice the standard probation period at work. Simply put, no, get out. Steve said, how on earth can you trust a political party that's openly anti-British, started by Blair and now at full steam ahead under Starmer? And Kate says, hi Petrie, re the Deputy Labour leader, anybody but Emily Thornberry. That's from Kate. Right, let me go to your calls now. And Steve has called from Birmingham about Shabana Mahmood, who is now the new Home Secretary. Hello, Steve.
Hello. I'm just ringing up to say that Shabana Mahmood should be given a chance, because if she does it right and gets everything right, Starmer and Lammy should be packing their bags, because she will be the next Prime Minister. If she gets all this right and does really well, because she's a lady, and you know what? you need a lady to stand up, and she looks like it.
Yeah, but Yvette Cooper was a lady. She's just, Yvette Cooper, the last Home Secretary.
Oh no, Cooper's finished. Cooper had to go. She's run the British people down over the hotels and that, putting the immigrants before the British people.
So I mean, she's going to. I mean, historically, of course, and this is probably what Keir Starmer's trying to say with this reshuffle, is that it was all her fault. But actually, this comes from the top. You know, Shabana Mahmood won't be able to do really any more than Yvette Cooper was, because it comes from Keir Starmer being a human rights lawyer.
Yes, but Keir Starmer's got to keep out of it, because his human rights have not done any good. They've made the country really poor, and people are struggling to survive. So he's got to take a step back and say, listen, I've made a mistake. It's him who's made all the mistakes, because he was in charge. If your gaffer made a mistake who you worked for, would you think he'd last this long in his job? Kept on making mistakes like he's done?
I've known many bosses that survived. To be fair, Steve, they seem to be able to push it downhill.
Yeah, but you just got to give her a chance. She's made a mistake by saying what she wanted to say before she became Home Office, and let's just give her a chance, because I think at the end of the day, she's going to be able to stand the ground. And you know what? I think the Americans will like her.
I think the Americans will like her. She spent a lot of time talking to a lot of foreign countries, and I think I think she's going to be tough. But I still believe that the downward pressure from Starmer will prevent any really big changes from happening. He's not going to let her just run free on this, I don't think.
But that's up to the Labour Party then to look and see what's going on. Then they know who to blame, and it's time he packed his bags and went. And
I think that's what'll happen.
Yeah.
In about a year and a half's time, I'm pretty sure that he won't be Prime Minister. But I think you're right. I mean, look, we've got to give everybody a fair crack of the whip, right? But it just feels like it's all talk and no walk with this lot.
I don't know. I think she's she can stand the ground. I think she's a Muslim, and the Muslims do stand their ground, and you've got to respect them.
Yeah, well, let's wait and see. Your dog has got an opinion, hasn't he?
Oh, yeah, he's a big dog.
Is he? He sounds quite small. What kind of dog?
But like I say, at the end of the day, all we need is somebody to get control of the country and bring it back to Britain. We're losing everybody. All the other countries are all laughing at us. We're the laughing stock of the world now, and we need to get back to where we was before. Even like under Maggie Thatcher.
Wow, that's going back. Let's wait. I mean, look, you've got hope and you've got faith that this things will change, and that is actually what that's what Emily Thornberry's asking for. Really, is a bit of hope and a bit of faith. Just very quickly though, Steve, what kind of dog?
A cane corser.
Oh, they scare me.
I've got a cane corser and I've got a French bulldog.
French bulldog, they're quite sweet. Yeah, but the cane corso, have you got the ears in that evil?
No.
All right.
No, I wouldn't have it done.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
She's a good guard dog.
Yeah, she sounds like it. She doesn't like me much. Anyway, listen, you enjoy your afternoon. Thank you so much for calling in. Steve in Birmingham, he has hope and he has faith that they can turn this around. Let's wait and see. Tony is in Southampton wanting to talk about the housing. Hi, Tony.
Hi. So I had a big building estate behind me, and we went through all the planning process 10 years ago. And they planned for 90% for sale, 10% for low-cost housing.
Which is 85% of value of normal housing, so it's not cheap.
Yeah, well, it's not cheap. Well, it's just to rent and things like that, social housing.
Oh, right.
So the trouble is that they got the same formula on another proposal now, but the rental market is really tight round here. and rents have gone through the roof. You know, we started off at like £850, and now it's at £1,400.
Yeah.
Right? The thing you need to do, you need to change the proportion so that 50% go for sale, 10% are social housing, and then 40% go on the open market to rent. And you do that by asking pensioners to invest and giving them a couple of percent above the rate. And then they're managed by responsible landlords and housing associations, and they can't be sold off for 5 years. And that increases the rental housing stock. The other thing is that the big development behind me, they had to have a huge area called a SANG, a suitable alternative natural green space. They had to have an orchard. They had to have allotments. They had to have an adult gym, and that on-site art, off-site art, contributions to Village Hall. This all pushes up the housing cost to the young, and the only people who could afford these houses were people with 2 jobs at the the teaching hospital or university jobs. So you're not, if you reduce the amount of social space that you build, like dog walking areas, quite frankly, then you could have built 600 houses there instead of 350. Or to Taylor Wimpey, if you're going to rent these houses out, they'll build them as fast as they can get rid of them. They built over 5 years because they could only sell a few units a month.
Yeah, but they also want to maximise that profit, and they'll do that by spacing. That's why they land bank. They sit on banks of land until the value of properties go up, and then they build on that. So there's a lot. It's a very complicated picture. But I agree with you, Tony. I think that there should be a much more definite line as to how much they can profit, how much is for rent, and how much is for social housing. I agree with that entirely. Got to take a quick break, but I'll be back in just a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, it is Talk and it is drive time, and it is Petrie Hosken here with you until the top of the hour. Just some breaking news here. Firefighters are responding to a possible hazardous materials incident at Heathrow Airport. We've just had a statement from the London Fire Brigade which says firefighters are responding to a possible hazardous materials incident at Heathrow. Specialist crews have been deployed to carry out an assessment of the scene, and a part of the airport has been evacuated as a precaution while firefighters respond. The brigade was first called about the incident at 5:01, and crews from Feltham, Heathrow, Wembley and surrounding fire stations have been sent to the scene. Part of the airport has been evacuated, though the London Fire Brigade has not indicated which areas are affected. Passengers have been seen waiting outside Terminal 4, however, so if you're heading to Heathrow for your flight, please check with your carrier, please check with the airport before you set off on your journey. I think that would be a very sensible piece of advice. Now, though, it's time to talk to John Lucas, who's the night news editor at The Sun. I think that sounds quite glamorous, doesn't it? Night news editor. It's like one of those Marvel characters.
That's right, yeah.
Night news.
I'm not sure it is as glamorous as...
that's a
but
shame.
it'd be nice if it was.
Night news with John Lucas. Right, so tell us that story. I'm guessing will make some part of the Sun.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and someone who came through Heathrow earlier was Prince Harry.
Yeah, of course.
So Harry is back at the moment. He's doing a 4-day tour, a sort of mock tour, royal engagements. But it also happens to be the 3rd anniversary of Queen Elizabeth's death.
And the King acceding to the throne.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. So what we know is last night Harry was seen in the States boarding a BA jet to Britain, all dressed in dark clothing. He landed today. He went through the VIP lane at Heathrow and he was whisked straight to Windsor, to St George's Chapel, where the Queen is at rest in there. And at the same time, William and Kate were off to another engagement to mark the anniversary at a WI meeting about 15 minutes away. So they didn't meet each other. We think actually it's possible their cars might have actually passed.
Do we think that was deliberate?
It would have been, I think it probably would have been
Their
timed.
diaries would have been,
Yeah, and look, Harry's here for 4 days. There isn't anything in the official diary for him to meet his dad, the King. Obviously, King Charles has been very ill and fighting
He's up in
cancer.
Scotland at the moment as well, isn't he?
Yeah, and Harry's going to be in, at the moment he's doing, he'll be speaking, might be right now, at the Well Child Awards, which is a charity he's very closely linked with. He's going to be in Nottingham tomorrow. Exactly, if there's any chance for him and his dad to meet, it's obviously be a massive moment. But things have been very, very strained with the whole family, so it's a very sad situation, as we know. But we'll keep tabs on it and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one, isn't it? Because from what I've been reading, we don't know if it's true or not, of course, but they're saying that he wants to try and fix things with his family. But every time he talks publicly about his family, he puts his foot in his mouth again, saying, I don't know how long my dad's got to live. Well, I know he's your dad, but he's also our king, and that scares the chickens, right? People start to go, what's happening?
Yeah, I mean, it must be very difficult because I'm sure that, whatever's happened, I'm sure family members would like to speak to him, but as we know,
can they trust him?
Things then come out in books or in
I
documentaries,
know.
so it's must be very tough for everybody.
It is, but apparently he wants to come here more often and bring his family with him.
They're back in the States at the moment.
Yeah, we'll wait and see. Christian Bruckner, who is the Madeleine McCann suspect. They've been pointing the finger at him for a couple of years now, haven't they? He gets free from jail next week.
Yeah, he will do, yeah. So one of our top reporters, Rob Pattinson, spent the last year and a bit working on this documentary about Christian Bruckner and all the evidence that's stacked up against him. And that went out on Channel 4. You can see it on YouTube as well. But despite everything, he will be getting out next week, September 17th. And it's an extraordinary story that we've got tomorrow. So there's two elements of what we'll have in the paper tomorrow. One is he's getting out about 4 months earlier because a mystery woman paid a court fee of about £1,300. He had an outstanding fee. Now, the spanner in the works that's been thrown there is that's taken away 4 extra months where police were hoping to get forensic evidence.
More
because
evidence.
They won't. It's not like here where we will put someone on trial if there's a hell of a lot of circumstantial evidence. We'll put someone on trial and we'll see what the jury says. There, they want solid forensic proof. And I mean, some of the things. He's a horrible man. Obviously, tons of convictions
He's a
for
rapist,
sex crimes.
yeah.
He's a rapist. He had an obsession with snatching and abusing small girls. Police were able to place him at areas around where Maddie disappeared. A key witness spoke about a confession that he made. We know about the existence of a hard drive and laptop which are said to contain crucial evidence on them relating to what happened to Maddie, but there's no forensic link. So those 4 months have been taken away now, and we're going to have I can't talk about it now because I know how everybody watches, but we'll have all the background to who that woman is and why she did what she did, and it is extraordinary. And obviously the second strand to this is, well, what's going to happen once he gets out? Again, it's unbelievable.
Is he going to be watched?
Well, we don't know. It's shrouded in secrecy because the German legal system is very focused on protecting the criminals, because over there they actually can't refer to him by name in their press and media. We can here, and we don't know exactly whether he's.
So he gets anonymity, basically.
Well, he might not be on a tag. We think he's going to go to a safe house. We think there'll be an initial travel ban, but he will be allowed to leave the country. And the prosecutors are frantically trying to prevent that from happening, because obviously we don't know what he might do. He's a serious, sex criminal. So he's probably not going to want to hang around if he can help it. But
will he get his passport back? Will he be able to travel?
I think so, yeah. No, he will. He will. He will, because they hold it's completely upside down compared with what we have in this country. They will look after the defendants, because they'll say, well, look, he's done his time for what he's been convicted of. So, yeah.
Well, I hope that they've got him on a no-fly into Britain.
Well, I don't know, because if he came into Britain, he'd probably be arrested, and we might be able to put him on trial here. But we'll have to see what happens.
Yeah, but I mean, when I saw that, I was like, well, already he's free. But there we go. The vacancy left by Angela Rayner.
Yeah.
Fascinated by all of this. I don't think it's going to be a pretty battle, is it, to be the deputy?
No, well, it will never be in Labour, and it's got to be a lefty to balance out
losing Angela Rayner.
Yeah.
I bet everyone says though that she was really good at sort of doing the sort of translation from the very hard left to Keir Starmer, and she was very good in the middle at translating. So, but she was really quite a lefty pseudo herself.
Yeah, well. Yeah, I don't know what to say about that. I mean, she, yeah, exactly. She's a class warrior, but, is she a champagne socialist? Because we all saw her on the beach in Hove with her vape and her Prosecco or whatever it was. But anyway, they're all throwing their hats in the ring. So I think Emily Thornberry, I don't think she has quite yet, but she wants to, I think.
She wants to, I think, yeah. I think she will. I don't think she's got a chance.
Yeah. Harriet Harman said, look, it's got to be a woman, and they've got to be from outside of London. I don't know. And Louise Hay, who
was sacked.
She's probably, yeah, exactly. And she's probably one of the most left wing. She wants an economic reset. Yeah, she was sacked for the dodgy
mobile phone
money
thing.
Yeah, Exactly. I
they
mean,
love their money, these Labour
there's got to be
politicians, don't they?
It's very ballsy, because considering what Rain has just gone for, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's ballsy. And also, well, Emily Thornberry was, of course, sideswiped, wasn't she, by Starmer? She was not chosen.
Exactly. So that would cause a huge row. And but it's voted on by, I think you've got to have
party members.
Yeah, you've got to have the backing of 80 MPs. And then 5% of local parties or free Labour affiliated groups. So it's very, it's not down to Starmer, essentially. He's going to have someone, foisted upon him. And of course, this all comes on the day that London's been, transport network's been brought to a standstill by the union barons, by the RMT. If you work in London like we do, you'll see.
It's a nightmare.
It's been hard for people to actually get in and do their jobs. Luckily, we're all employed by big companies. There's also lots of, self-employed people and smaller businesses.
And there's lots of people who need to get to
smashed by.
hospital appointments. I mean, it's a disgrace, and what they want is a 75% discount on travelling on trains around the country.
Yeah, but it's costing about, I think there's 230 million. That's the Centre for Economics and Business Research said that. It's the loss of about 700,000 working days. I don't even know whether that's a conservative figure or not. But
they should do what the French do, and that is when they go on strike, they keep the network running. They just don't take any money from the public.
Right, that's a good idea.
Yeah, and the French love them for it. It's like, go strike as much as you want, mate.
Yeah.
Because it's the bosses that then suffer, not the people.
Okay.
French are good at socialism. They're good at that. And just very quickly, I love this story. Brain fog on the Tyne. This is my favourite story.
Yeah, so if you were part of the Great North Run at the weekend, there's 60,000 people took part in this. I think it's the world's biggest half marathon anyway. And it goes through Newcastle, passes through Gateshead and finishes in South Shields. But if you were awarded a medal, it actually has a map of Sunderland on it. Featuring incredible, so it has the River Wear instead of the Tyne, and it even features very clearly Sunderland Stadium of Light, which you could just imagine the absolute joy that the folk of Sunderland have had with this.
Well, there's a battle going on between those two as old as time.
Yeah,
this is just
how they did it.
embarrassing.
I don't know. I mean, if you want to mix up two places on Earth,
not those
these
two.
are the last two, and it's great. So we've been trawling all the online comments. You got Sunderland fans saying, "Well, look, if the Magpies, if the Newcastle guys could read, they'd be very angry right now." And then some of the Geordies hitting back and saying, "Well, look, we've got to include Sunderland now and then, throw them a bone." So there's some good banter about it, but it's unbelievable. I don't know how it got through.
I reckon there's a bit of a brown envelope going on there.
Well,
somebody was paid to make that mistake.
Or, even more embarrassing, it could be an AI thing. Because we've asked them about it and they haven't admitted that they used AI, which is a little bit of a tell. So I do wonder if someone's going to be in big trouble.
Yeah, of all the places, not this. It's great to meet you. Thank you so much. Night News editor John Lucas there. Thank you.
Thanks.
going all over social media, instead of videos of people being put onto a coach, sent off to a hotel, getting 3 square meals a day, plus freedom to go into the local town and do what they want, plus pocket money and all these extra perks that even the British people don't get.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you until the top of the hour. And then, of course, Kevin O'Sullivan will be here. He's back from his holidays, so he'll be here taking you through from 7 until 10. And then Johnny Gould is in for me at 10 until 1. I've been asking you about the Labour government, as Emily Thornberry is thinking about throwing her hat into the ring to become Deputy Labour leader. And she's been saying that we need a bit more time. So I've been asking you if you feel that you want to give them that time. And loads of messages come through. Stephen said it's not about how long you've been in power, it's the quality and direction indicated of decisions made. Labour have been dire for most of the people in this country, and that's from Steve in Bromsgrove. Another Steve here says the French government collapses, so that's the one in, one out deal done for, and we'll probably see even more heading across the channel. And as it's after 6 p.m, Starmer won't want disturbing until the morning. We might see lots of French people coming across the channel at this rate, if it doesn't get much better in France. How on earth, another Steve, gosh, says, how on earth can you trust a political party that's openly anti-British? Sebastian continues to spout the typical Labour doctrine and yet still keeps a straight face. That was a guest that I had earlier on. Hi Petrie, Denmark has solved the migrant problem. They've processed less than 100 refugees in 2024. This irregular migration can be solved. Arrest, detain and deport. We can use an island of British territory to deport to. Denmark has solved the issue. Why can't our own government? Best wishes. I suppose where there's a will, there's a way, and if there isn't a will, there isn't a way. Talking of a will and a way, if Harry, Prince, has a will to come back to the UK, is there a way for him to do it? Well, Rupert Bell, a Talk Royal correspondent, joins me now. Rupert, thank you for joining me.
No problem.
Is he going to be welcomed back even if he wants to come back? I mean, we're hearing that he wants to visit Britain more with his family and show the kids where he grew up, like we all do, a palace here and a palace there. What do you think that's the truth? Do you think he wants to come back?
Well, I think he's on what you might say is a quasi-royal tour at the moment. Obviously, he's gone to the Well Child thing earlier today. He went and paid his respect to his late grandmother at Windsor Castle as he arrived into this country, and he's going around the country sort of linking up with past organisations that he had. And I think this is the sad thing, because he's rudderless in Montecito. He's suddenly realising, well, I was quite good back in the day at doing this, opening things, being good to people, and was popular. So that's where I think he's coming from. But the problem is, with the rest of the family, they don't trust him. And until that trust